Chapter 691. When Yun Jian said that they could begin, a lot of people felt their hearts clench. Zhuo Linwei turned his sharp eyes to Yun Jian. He looked directly at the girl who dared to challenge him one-on-one. Zhuo Linwei had a big body and a thick waist. His body was sturdy and powerful. He had long trained his muscles. Because of his many years of experience as a mercenary, he had a decisive advantage over Yun Jian in terms of physical strength. Although Yun Jian was strong, her physical strength was far from her previous lives. In her previous life, Yun Jian did not look like a burly woman, but at least she had enough physical strength to compete with Zhuo Linwei. In this life, Yun Jian persisted in training every day. However, her physical strength was not enough. After all, she had only trained for half a year. In her previous life, she had trained for 11 years in a life and death situation. In short, one's strength was not something that could be honed in a short period of time. Ha! Zhuo Linwei shouted loudly. Then he stretched out his thick arms and ran towards Yun Jian at his fastest speed. The strength in his hands did not decrease at all. Whether it was in her previous life or after her rebirth, Yun Jian's strength was not her strength. Physical strength was only one point. Yun Jian had always relied on tactics and methods to win. When she saw Zhuo Linwei rushing towards her, she did not panic or panic. Oh my God! I feel like this girl will be beaten into a meat patty by Coach Zhuo. A boy could not help but exclaim when he saw this scene. When the people present saw this scene, they all gasped. Zhang Xiaofeng and the others were not surprised. If you ask why Zhang Xiaofeng and the others were not worried that Yun Jian would not be able to defeat Zhuo Linwei, it was because Yun Jian had killed Wolf Blade, one of the top 10 assassins in the world, right in front of Zhang Xiaofeng and the others. Unlike Gu Junjian had received news that Wolf Blade was killed by Yun Jian. When Wolf Blade was killed, Zhang Xiaofeng and the others had seen it with their own eyes. Such terrifying skills. How could he possibly lose? Zhang Xiaofeng and the others knew that Yun Jian wouldn't lose, but they couldn't be sure that Yun Jian could beat Zhuo Linwei. After all, Zhuo Linwei, who had been in the Gale mercenary group, was not weak. No one could maintain absolute skills, and it was impossible for them to not improve at all. If they didn't train, their skills would deteriorate. Therefore, under such circumstances, a one-on-one duel was the most direct and easiest way to see who was stronger. Aren't you guys nervous? When Meng Lin saw that Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Sini, and Ling Yichen were not worried about Yun Jian losing at all, she was a little suspicious and took the opportunity to ask. "Heh, Sis Lin, just watch." Ling Yichen kept her in suspense. Meng Lin turned around suspiciously and looked towards the arena. However, Zhuo Linwei had already reached out his thick arm to grab Yun Jian. He tried to grab Yun Jian's arm and at the same time, give Yun Jian a somersault in order to win in one move. However, before Zhuo Linwei could touch Yun Jian's arm, Yun Jian's body was like a coiling snake. She leaned to the side and dodged Zhuo Linwei's grab in an instant. Zhuo Linwei was a little surprised for a second. Then, he turned around and tried to suppress Yun Jian to prevent her from attacking further. However, Zhuo Linwei didn't know that Yun Jian was strong because of her speed, accuracy, ruthlessness, and ferocity. Yun Jian bent sideways and circled from Zhuo Linwei's front to his back. At the same time, she took out her butterfly knife. Before Zhuo Linwei could turn around to suppress her, her unsheathed knife was already pressed against Zhuo Linwei's back, where his heart was. Chapter 692. The butterfly knife was still in Yun Jian's palm and had yet to be unsheathed. In other words, even if Yun Jian were to stab Zhuo Linwei's heart in the back with the butterfly knife, Zhuo Linwei would only be hit by the scabbard. He would be fine. How could the knife hurt someone if it was not unsheathed? Everyone was stupefied. It was only then that Zhuo Linwei realized that if Yun Jian had unsheathed the saber that was pressed against his back, he would be dead by now. Zhuo Linwei had brute strength and his speed was not considered slow. However, the reason he lost so quickly was simple. Yun Jian was too fast, so fast that Zhuo Linwei could not react at all. Moreover, if a person only had brute strength, wouldn't it be useless if he could not hit his opponent? Just when everyone present was so shocked that they were speechless, Ning Bin's cry of surprise rang out, F***ck. The little beauty won. This shout completely pulled the souls of everyone present back to reality. Although Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Sini, and Ling Yichen had seen Yunjian's skills before, they could not help but shiver from the bottom of their hearts when they witnessed Yunjian's skills again. Meng Lin also widened her eyes at the scene in front of her. At the same time, she gulped a few times and could not help but criticize in her heart. In any case, she had grown up practicing judo and was older than Yunjian. But what about her skills? If she, Meng Lin, was the one who fought Yunjian, she dared to bet that she would have been subdued by Yunjian before she could even lift her hand. Ha ha ha. At that moment, Zhuo Linwei's heroic voice was heard. Everyone turned to look at Zhuo Linwei. They saw that Yunjian had already put away the butterfly knife and habitually hid it in her pocket. The younger generation will surpass us in time. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Zhuo Linwei said. At the same time, he turned around and looked straight at Yunjian. Thank you for letting me win. Yunjian lowered her eyes, the corners of her lips curled up slightly as she spoke humbly. Ha ha ha. Like I said, my master. How could he lose? At this moment, the happiest person was probably Zhang Xiaofeng. At this moment, Zhang Xiaofeng stood in front of everyone and smiled without caring about his image. Zhang Xiaofeng was quite good-looking, but his smile completely ruined his image. That's enough. Chen Sini was also happy for Yunjian. Of course, at the same time, she did not forget to tease Zhang Xiaofeng. Hee hee. Zhang Xiaofeng laughed and ran towards Yunjian. As he ran, Zhang Xiaofeng even shouted exaggeratedly, Master, how could your move be so powerful? Teach me quickly. Yunjian had gradually begun to teach Zhang Xiaofeng moves. After half a semester, Zhang Xiaofeng had almost mastered the chopstick throwing. Half a semester was not enough for Zhang Xiaofeng to master the chopstick throwing to perfection, and Yunjian did not ask Zhang Xiaofeng to stop. Moreover, the purpose of coming to this taekwondo dojo today was to teach Zhang Xiaofeng moves. Yunjian did not intend to hide it. She stretched out her jade-like hand and then started to move. Today, I'll teach you this. You have to be fast and accurate. If the opponent attacks you, you have to remember that you have to dodge the opponent's attack at the same time. At the same time, you can't determine whether the opponent has a follow-up move. Therefore, during the time when you dodge the opponent's attack, use the knife to block the opponent's fatal point. This is very important. Yunjian repeated the movements just now. Her moves were clean and neat. Zhang Xiaofeng listened and nodded. Even Zhuo Linwei was surprised. A cloud of doubt floated in the hearts of everyone present. Who taught Yunjian such good moves? Chapter 693. Zhang Xiaofeng was still trying to understand the moves that Yunjian had just taught him. At this time, Zhang Xiaofeng was very serious. His serious look made Chen Sini, who wanted to make a dig at Zhang Xiaofeng, shut her mouth. Yunjian turned her head slightly and looked at Ning Bin for the first time. Ning Bin had been talking to himself, so Yunjian didn't pay attention to him at all. Perhaps there were indeed many girls who liked to talk to and get close to a guy like Ning Bin who liked to act cool and pretentious. Seeing that Yunjian finally turned her head and intended to talk to him for once, Ning Bin was wild with joy. He looked at Yunjian, looking forward to Yunjian's answer. This anticipation was partly because Yunjian finally paid attention to him for once, and partly because Ning Bin really wanted to know who taught Yunjian her moves. Do you believe me? Yunjian's lips curled up. Her eyes were shining, making everyone's eyelids twitch. Yunjian's answer made some of the boys present even more unconvinced. TSK, who are you trying to fool? As the saying goes, the master can show you the way, but the cultivation depends on the individual. You said that you didn't have a master and taught yourself, so how could you have such skills? Someone was unconvinced and retorted to Yunjian. This was indeed the truth. and the old saying was also reasonable. However, Yunjian's moves were indeed not taught by anyone. She had comprehended them on her own. Other than the hypnotism that the old man had taught her. These killer moves were figured out by Yunjian on her own. She was a living person who had crawled out from a pile of corpses. She had killed many people and dealt with many experts, so some moves naturally appeared. You don't believe me? Yunjian raised her eyebrows. Then she changed her tone. Her slightly curled lips instantly calmed down. What if I say that I'm an assassin who crawled out from a pile of corpses, and that's my experience after killing countless people? Would you believe me? Yunjian's eyes darkened, and her murderous intent rose. She had never been a person who would do her job and speak her mind. As soon as Yunjian finished speaking, even Zhuo Linwei, who had just lost to Yunjian, was stunned again. Assassin. If she was really an assassin who had crawled out from an assassin organization, then everything made sense. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Their eyes widened, and they all looked at Yunjian. Kill, kill, kill. You're an assassin? Ningbin was terrified by Yunjian. Just when everyone thought he was to tell the truth, she glanced to the side, and sneered, You believe that? Yunjian did not like people like Ningbin, so she did not hold back when she spoke. After saying that, Yunjian immediately turned around. She was already walking toward Zhang Xiaofeng and the others. She even commented on Ningbin, stupid. When Yunjian reached Zhang Xiaofeng and the others, Zhang Xiaofeng and the others were already out of breath from laughing. In fact, from the beginning, Zhang Xiaofeng and the others were disgusted by people like Ningbin who liked to speak in a sarcastic manner and pretended to be arrogant in front of others. Yunjian's action just now was obviously to attack Ningbin from the side. Yunjian's action just now was more satisfying than directly insulting Ningbin. As expected, after Ningbin was criticized by Yunjian, his face instantly darkened. Master, you're the best. Zhang Xiaofeng gestured at Yunjian. Haha. Ling Yichen also laughed unkindly at the side. Yunjian, I didn't expect you to be so good. Meng Lin could not help but praise. Chapter 694. Meng Lin also gave Chen Sini a big smile. There was a round clock hanging in front of the Taekwondo dojo. Yunjian could see the time on the clock when she looked up. It was already 12:00 in the afternoon. At 12:30, Yunjian had to go to the military training camp. She was supposed to spend an hour teaching Zhang Xiaofeng moves, but she didn't expect to encounter something like this. After everyone laughed, Yunjian said to Zhang Xiaofeng, You continue to practice the moves I just taught you. I'll check on you the next time you come. Yunjian meant that she was going to the military training camp. Zhang Xiaofeng and the others understood, so they nodded. Okay, master, go ahead. I'll definitely practice seriously. Zhang Xiaofeng was in high spirits. In Zhang Xiaofeng's heart, he had already set Yunjian as his goal. Working hard towards his goal was what Zhang Xiaofeng wanted to do the most at the moment. Okay. Yunjian nodded and was about to turn around and leave the Taekwondo dojo. Yunjian, wait. Before Yunjian could lift her foot to leave, Meng Lin's voice came from behind. Yes? Yunjian turned her head slightly and looked at Meng Lin. Yunjian had a good impression of Meng Lin, so Yunjian wouldn't ignore her. I'm going to start school tomorrow. I'll be leaving at 4:00 in the afternoon. Because I'm out of the province, I might not be able to come back for a long time. But I'm definitely going to make friends with you. You can come and play with me during your next break. Yichen knows where my school is. Meng Lin invited Yunjian. It was apparent that the tomboy Meng Lin, who was tall and short-haired, was really planning to befriend Yunjian. Okay. Yunjian narrowed her eyes slightly. She looked at Meng Lin's bold appearance and immediately agreed. Okay. Meng Lin also nodded vigorously at Yunjian. Under everyone's gaze, Yunjian walked out of the Taekwondo dojo. If he left for the military training camp at 12:00, he would naturally arrive on time at 12:30. Chu Ning, Chu Xiangnan, and the rest had been training at the training ground since early in the morning. When they saw Yun Jian, the rest of Team Monarch gathered around her. Chu Xiangnan walked up to Yun Jian in an even more exaggerated manner and said bluntly, "Hey, Yun Jian, did you know? I heard that our officer Gu is getting married." And this news came from an old officer who is very close to Officer Gu. He said that the date hasn't been set yet, but this matter is most likely going to happen. What do you know? Go away, go away. I'll tell Yun Jian, Chu Ning pulled Chu Xiangnan away and squeezed herself in front of Yun Jian before continuing. Hee, Yun Jian, don't listen to that idiot Chu Xiangnan's nonsense, but it's true. It's said that Officer Gu divorced his ex-wife a long time ago and is planning to get married after the new year. That's because this morning, Officer Gu submitted a marriage application to the higher-ups. I wonder who's lucky enough to marry Officer Gu now. It's really hard to find a man as good as Officer Gu. Chu Ning could not help but be a little infatuated. After all, Gu Yunjian's looks were not bad. With a proper military face and a proper military uniform, Gu Junjian was really worthy of a valiant military posture. However, even though Gu Junjian was already in his 40s, it was not hard to tell that Gu Junjian was not bad looking when he was young. Since Officer Gu is so good, why don't you marry him? Chu Xiangnan glanced at Chu Ning. He did not realize that he had said something so sour. You. F***CKU. Chu Ning clenched her fists and chased after Chu Xiangnan as soon as she heard him. Yun Jian chuckled awkwardly, the corners of her lips twitching subtly. What should she say? That the person who said that Officer Gu was getting married was her mother? It turned out that Gu Junjian had already submitted a marriage application to the higher-ups. Chapter 695. However, Yun Jian did not expect Gu Junjian to act so quickly. He had just confirmed his relationship with her mother not long ago, and he had already applied for marriage from his superior. However, it was obvious that Gu Junjian was sincere about Qin Yiru, and Yun Jian was relieved. Chu Ning and Chu Xiangnan soon got into a fight. Lu Shiyun and the rest glanced at Chu Ning and Chu Xiangnan helplessly. How childish. Jiang Weiwei chuckled, but there was no hint of mockery in her words. To Jiang Weiwei, she had already integrated into Team Monarch. Jiang Weiwei might have been conceited before, but she had the right to be conceited. Of course, that was before Yun Jian appeared. People would always grow up, and Jiang Weiwei was one of those people who matured. Chu Ning jumped up and knocked on Chu Xiangnan's head out of habit. Then, before Chu Xiangnan could react, she ran back to where Yun Jian and Jiang Weiwei were and hugged them to hide. Damn it, damn it. Chu Xiangnan called out in dissatisfaction, but he did not chase after Chu Ning to argue with her like Chu Ning did. Although his code name is Lei Ting, he's actually being beaten up by girls. Even the taciturn Hong Fan could not help but use simple words to describe Chu Xiangnan's situation. Lei Ting was Chu Xiangnan's code name. When these words came out of Hong Fan's mouth, they sounded very different. Damn it, Hong Fan, even you dare to say that about me. Take this. Chu Xiangnan gave in to Chu Ning, but he would not give in to a boy. Therefore, after hearing Hong Fan's words, he charged at Hong Fan, and the two of them hugged each other. Just as Chu Xiangnan and Hong Fan were having fun, Yun Jian's melodious voice was heard again. Officer Gu is here. Upon hearing that Officer Gu had arrived, Chu Xiangnan and Hong Fan, who were huddled together, immediately let go of each other. The two of them were like primary school students who were fooling around in class, but suddenly saw the teacher and immediately sat up straight. Chu Xiangnan quickly loosened his grip on Hong Fan. He looked around and shouted, "Hey, where is he? Where is Officer Gu?" Yun Jian smiled. I lied to you. After hearing Yun Jian admit to lying, Chu Ning could not help but laugh out loud. She laughed so hard that tears almost rolled down her cheeks. She didn't expect Yun Jian to be a liar. After laughing, Chu Xiangnan and Hong Fan started fooling around again. Lu Shiyun calmly walked over to Yun Jian and said, we'll be going to the military academy in Min City in a few days. We'll be going home once every month or half a month. As soon as Lu Shiyun finished this steady topic, Chu Xiangnan and Hong Fan, who were still fooling around, stopped their movements. Everyone turned to look at Yun Jian. Yun Jian was currently in her 3rd year of junior high school and could not enroll in the military academy yet. As for Team Monarch, they had been together for a long time. Now that they were about to part under such circumstances, it was natural for them to feel a little sad. After all, Chu Ning and the rest would not usually come to the military training camp if they were to go home once a month or half a month. Once they went to the military academy, the training grounds would naturally become the academy's own grounds. Aya, why are you all so sad? It's not like Yun Jian won't come to the military academy to look for us. It's just half a year. Chu Ning tried to lighten the mood, but she was feeling rather sad too. That's right. Yun Jian, you can come and look for us during your holidays. Chu Xiangnan added. Chapter 696. Lu Shiyun sounded confident when he said that, speaking to Yun Jian in a rather serious tone. That's right. We'll work hard to become people who can fight alongside you. Every member of Team Monarch must live up to this title. Fang Xiaoran followed up Lu Shiyun's words and promised Yun Jian with equal vigor. As soon as Fang Xiaoran finished speaking after Lu Shiyun, everyone present chimed in to support Lu Shiyun's words. There were no weaklings in Team Monarch. The king was someone who stood at the top of the world. They would not be weaklings. They would live up to the title Yun Jian gave them and become true kings. All right. Just as everyone's vigor was about the same and everyone declared that they would fight alongside Yun Jian, a voice as thick as Mount Tai sounded. Everyone turned to see Gu Junjian walking in from outside the training ground. It was obvious that the voice just now came from Gu Junjian. Gu Junjian was deeply moved by their majestic declaration. He quickly stood in front of them and said, with such determination, it means that all of you have the potential to become powerhouses. The future belongs to all of you. Gu Junjian might be different from other officers. He would be stern when it was time to be serious and would joke with them when it was time to be joking. However, he would not be stingy with the encouragement and rewards that were due. After Gu Junjian said those words, everyone then realized Gu Junjian's arrival. Yun Jian smiled as she stood at the side. Heh, Officer Gu, I heard that you're getting married. Is that true? Chu Xiangnan immediately adjusted the situation that had been in high spirits earlier. Once Chu Xiangnan asked Gu Junjian about this, everyone's eyes were fixed on Gu Junjian. It was normal for subordinates to be curious about their superior's privacy. As for Gu Junjian, other than being stern when it was time to be, Gu Junjian was usually very amiable. Gu Junjian's solemn mood was instantly turned red by Chu Xiangnan's words. Officer Gu, just tell us about it, okay? You have to treat us to your wedding banquet. We will definitely come to your wedding banquet. Chu Ning looked at Gu Junjian expectantly as if she wanted to know everything about Gu Junjian. Well, cough. Gu Junjian was embarrassed by their stares. He clenched his fist and coughed softly. Train well. Don't think that I can't control you guys just because you're going to the military academy. Before you go, all 6 of you have to pass the assessment with me first. Gu Junjian's face turned red from the scolding. He waved his hand and tried to change the topic. Are you serious? Officer Gu, aren't you being too harsh? Chu Xiangnan immediately shouted weakly when he heard Gu Junjian's words. That's right, Officer Gu. You haven't told us who your bride is yet. Hee. Chu Ning cleverly changed the topic. Say it. Chu Xiangnan stood at the side and cheered for Chu Ning. In front of Chu Ning and Chu Xiangnan, these 2 clowns, Gu Junjian suddenly felt very helpless. It was not that Gu Junjian did not dare to say it, but how was he supposed to bring it up? Was he supposed to say that it was Yun Jian's mother? It was a little strange to hear that from his own mouth. Everyone's gaze shifted to Gu Junjian. Chapter 697. Yunjian's sudden words shocked everyone present. When they came back to their senses, they turned to look at Yunjian. Are you kidding? Officer Ge's bride is actually Yunjian's mother? Chu Xiangnan looked at Yunjian in shock. His face twitched in shock, and it was obvious that he had yet to recover from the shock. This. Oh my God. Officer Go and Yunjian's mother. Chu Ning shouted as well. Apart from Chu Xiangnan and Chu Ning, the rest of the people present were also dumbfounded. However, they were not as exaggerated as Chu Xiangnan and Chu Ning. However, Lu Shiyun, Fang Xiaoran, Hong Fan, and Jiang Weiwei were still in disbelief. Officer Go, is this true? Are you sure you're not joking? After all, it was such an unbelievable thing that everyone present was shocked. Chu Xiangnan even turned to look at Gu Junjian and asked seriously. If this was true, wouldn't Officer Gu become Yunjian's stepfather? Yes, she's right. She's not joking. Officer Gu nodded. Everyone present was stunned again when Gu Junjian admitted it himself. However, since the matter was out in the open, they did not dwell on it anymore. After congratulating Gu Junjian and Yunjian, the group began their daily training. When it was almost 4:30 p.m., Gu Junjian drove everyone home in the jeep. In the car, Fang Xiaoran mimicked Chu Xiangnan and joked with Gu Junjian. No wonder Officer Gu always sends Yunjian home last. So it's because he wants to stay at Yunjian's house. Everyone present let out a cry of relief. Oh, Gu Junjian did not feel awkward at this moment. He chuckled and sent everyone home as usual. In the end, Gu Junjian drove the jeep directly to Yunjian's house. Yunjian and Gu Junjian stepped into the house at the same time and saw Qin Yiru walking toward them. You're back. Qin Yiru rubbed her hands. Her hands were still wet, and it was obvious that she had just washed her clothes. Yes. Yunjian nodded and went upstairs to look for Ce, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya. Yunjian directly ran to Xiao Yunju's bedroom. She saw Ce casually sitting on the bed with her slender legs apart. Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya were stacking building blocks on the floor. At this moment, even Duanya, who had been quiet all this time, revealed a smile. However, Duanya was still as silent as before. Of course, this could not be blamed on her. After all, Duanya was still young, and because of the way Duansha treated her when she was young, Duanya's heart had suffered a severe blow. Of course, at this moment, Duanya was smiling. This meant that Duanya was not born with facial paralysis or someone who did not know how to smile. As soon as Yunjian walked over, Ce took her hand and pulled her into his embrace. Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya were still stacking building blocks behind Ce and Yunjian's backs. Therefore, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya did not see Ce's action. Ce was sitting on the bed. He pulled Yunjian into his embrace, and Yunjian was pulled to sit on his lap by Ce. Yunjian did not wear much today. Because of the hot weather and the fact that they were going to the military training camp, Yunjian did not wear much. She was only wearing a pair of thin pants. Ce pulled her to sit on his lap. Because he was sitting on the bed, Yunjian could even feel the clamor of a certain part of his lower body. Chapter 698. She was afraid that Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya would notice her awkward situation, so she allowed Ce to continue taking advantage of her. Sitting in this awkward position, Yunjian was so shy that she could barely control herself. Let go. Yunjian mouthed silently to Ce. Of course, she didn't make a sound. She was currently sitting on Ce's lap, and she could feel the sensation between her legs becoming more and more obvious. In an instant, she became extremely shy, and an unknown blush covered her face. I'm not letting go. Ce also mouthed silently back to Yunjian. At this moment, he turned his head to the right, and his eyes met with Yunjian's. When Yunjian heard this, she became even more embarrassed. This was the first time she had been hugged by a boy, and it was also the first time she had been so close to a boy. "This is a house that I built." At this moment, Xiao Yunju's excited voice sounded. Yunjian's eyelids twitched. Usually, at this moment, Xiao Yunju would excitedly turn his head to look at Yunjian and Ce. Then, he would happily shout, "Big sister, big brother Ce, come and see, this is the big house that Xiao Yunju built." If Xiao Yunju saw her sitting in such an embarrassing position on Ce's lap, how would she be able to face him? Big sister. Yunjian had just thought of this. As expected, Xiao Yunju was extremely excited. As he shouted, he wanted to turn around to tell Yunjian and Ce about his magnificent feat. Yunjian struggled to break free from Ce's embrace. However, Ce held her even tighter, and Yunjian could clearly feel that something in Ce's lower body was swelling. "If you move, I'll..." Ce tilted his head and looked at Yunjian. His lips curled into an evil smile as he mouthed silently to Yunjian. That evil look of his was asking for a beating. Ce purposely said the word, "I," and didn't say anything else. However, Yunjian understood what Ce meant even if she didn't know anything about men and women. She blushed instantly. At this moment, Xiao Yunju, who was about to turn around, was attracted by Duan Li's words. "It's not nice. The big house I built is nicer," Duan Li said proudly. Xiao Yunju was so shocked by Duan Li's words that he forgot to turn around and ask Yunjian and Ce. He understood women's hearts quite well, so he immediately went along with Duan Li's words. "Alright, the big house you built is better than mine." Duan Li's face immediately lit up and she smiled happily. As soon as Duan Li laughed, Duanya laughed as well. Xiao Yunju's childish face gained a hint of handsomeness. When he saw Duan Li smiling happily, it was as if he had encountered something delightful, so he smiled brightly as well. Seeing that Xiao Yunju was restrained by Duan Li and did not look over, Yunjian breathed a sigh of relief. She was about to hit Ce's head to make him let go of her when Qin Yu's voice came from downstairs. "Xiao Jian, Ae, come down quick. Mom has something to tell you." With Qin Yu's shout, Yunjian's heart clenched again. Usually, if Xiao Yunju heard Qin Yu's shout, even if it was not directed at him, he would quickly turn around to see what was going on, even if Qin Yu was not shouting to Xiao Yunju. At this moment, he was still sitting on Ce's lap. Fortunately, even Qin Yu's shout could not stop Xiao Yunju from playing with Duan Li and Duanya. Yunjian breathed a sigh of relief as well. She felt like a thief right now. Chapter 699. Xiao Yunju suddenly turned his head because he wanted to ask Yunjian and Ce if his house or Duan Li's house was prettier. However, before Xiao Yunju could finish his question, he saw Yunjian sitting on Ce's lap. "Yunju, what's wrong with you?" Duan Li glanced at Yunju out of the corner of her eye. Seeing that Yunju had turned around and remained silent, she turned her head as well. Duanya imitated Duan Li and turned her head as well. However, Yunjian had already jumped down from Ce's lap, so Ce no longer had any motivation to do so. Duan Li and Duanya, on the other hand, did not see the shocking scene of Yunjian sitting on Ce's lap. Ahem, nothing. Yunjian pretended that nothing had happened. She glared fiercely at Ce, which made Ce's heart itch even more. At this moment, Yunjian had already walked downstairs. Ce saw that Yunjian was a little angry and had even learned to ignore him. He smiled helplessly and followed her downstairs. Xiao Yunju, who was dumbfounded, remained in his previous position. Duan Li saw that Xiao Yunju was dumbfounded. She hurriedly asked Xiao Yunju, "Yunju, why does big sister seem angry?" Xiao Yunju was dumbfounded. Then, he opened his mouth and said, "I saw big sister sitting on Ce's lap just now." Duan Li seemed to think for a while. Then, she said, "Then they must be playing games. Yunju, let's continue to build the house." Thus, the three children continued to play with the blocks in their hands as if nothing had happened. They built a bigger and more beautiful house. "Mom, what's wrong?" Yun Jian, who had just come downstairs, saw Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru sitting on the sofa in the living room. Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru were close to each other with blissful smiles on their faces. It was a heartwarming sight. Xiao Jian, AE, come and take a look. We've picked 2 wedding dates but we don't know which one is the best. Qin Yiru was brimming with happiness as she leaned her head on Gu Yunjian's shoulder with a smile. Yun Jian went over with a smile. Ce had his hands in his pockets as he followed Yun Jian over. It was both Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's second marriage. Moreover, they already had children now, so there was no need to make such a big fuss about their wedding. Of course, there was still a need for some extravagance, but both Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian agreed that since it was their second marriage, there was no need for an engagement. Although it was her second marriage, from what Qin Yiru could tell, this wedding was truly of her own accord. She was forced to marry Yun Gang previously, it was not sincere at all. Therefore, Qin Yiru was as excited as a little girl when it came to choosing a wedding date. Yun Jian took the calendar from Qin Yiru and saw 2 dates circled in red. Yun Jian pressed her lips together before she pointed at one of the dates and told Qin Yiru, this one. Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian craned their necks to see Yun Jian's finger pointing at the 21st of the May calendar. 21st of May. 5:21. Let's choose this date. Gu Junjian said with a glance. Okay, we'll listen to Xiao Jian, Qin Yiru replied softly with a smile. Chapter 700. Once the wedding date was set, it was time to send out the invitations. Since it was their second marriage, Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian would not hold a large-scale wedding like they did with their daughter. Besides, other than Dong Wan and Zhang Meihua's families, Qin Yiru did not have any important relatives or friends. Gu Yunjian's parents had passed away early, so other than some of his comrades in the military, he did not have anyone else to invite. Moreover, it was their second marriage, so there was no need for a grand wedding, so they kept it simple. I'll write the invitations and send them out tomorrow, Qin Yiru said. Qin Yiru's handwriting was beautiful when she was still a student and was once praised as a model handwriting by her teacher. Sure. Gu Junjian nodded. It was only then that Qin Yiru looked away from Gu Junjian and turned to Ce, saying, Ae, if it's convenient, you can ask your family to come as well. Qin Yiru only knew that Ce's mother had passed away early and that the child was quite pitiful. As for other things, Qin Yiru did not know. Qin Yiru only thought that even if Ce's father did not treat him well, his father's family should not be bad, right? However, Qin Yiru was wrong. Ce's family was complicated and was an internationally renowned arms family. I don't have any family, Ce said coldly. To Ce, there was no such thing as a father or family. His father treated him as a tool and only wanted to use his marriage to gain more benefits. As for his family, those people could not wait for him to die. If that happened, Lengu would really have no heir. When that happened, his so-called family would then have a chance to fight for the right to inherit Lengu. Qin Yiru was stunned, not expecting Ce to say that. But thinking about it, if this child's family treated him well, he wouldn't have rushed back home for only a short while. Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian thought that Ce went abroad every once in a while because Ce went home every once in a while. In Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's opinion, Ce's family was overseas and Ce was just a rich man's son. Ae, it's fine. Your Uncle Gu and I are your family from now on, Qin Yiru nodded at Ce with a smile and said gently. When Ce heard Qin Yiru's words, his lips curved into a smile. Xiao Jian's family would be his family from now on. He also had relatives. Mom, I'll help you with this. Yun Jian went over to help when she saw that Qin Yiru was still writing the invitation with a black pen. Oh, sure. Qin Yiru did not reject Yun Jian's offer to help her write the invitation. She had already written down the person she wanted to invite on another piece of draft paper. Yun Jian's handwriting had her style as well. Yun Jian's handwriting was neat and familiar with a hint of elegance amidst the scribbles. Her handwriting was beautiful as well. Yun Jian took the black pen from Qin Yiru and helped Qin Yiru copy the content of the invitation into the beautiful rectangular invitation. A handwritten invitation was more sincere. Yun Jian looked at the invitation attentively as she wrote. She wrote seriously. Qin Yiru snuggled up to Gu Junjian with a gentle gaze. Qin Yiru suddenly caught a glimpse of Ce from the corner of her eye. Ce was looking at Yun Jian with a doting gaze. Ce's gaze gave Qin Yiru a strong feeling that even if Yun Jian wanted the stars in the sky, he would give her the entire universe. The more Qin Yiru looked at Ce, the more she liked him. Chapter 701. It only took Yun Jian half an hour to finish writing the invitations for Qin Yiru. Since Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian had already drafted the invitations beforehand, Yun Jian just had to copy them. "Mom, I'm done," Yun Jian said as she handed all the invitations to Qin Yiru. There were not many people to be invited, but there were actually a few invitations written. After all, Gu Junjian had plenty of comrades. Qin Yiru nodded and took the invitations from Yun Jian, saying, "Xiao Jian, thank you for your hard work." Yun Jian smiled and tucked the strands of hair by the side of Qin Yiru's face behind her ear. "Mom, it's not me. You're the one who's worked hard," Yun Jian said with a gentle smile. Qin Yiru had been worried sick for Yun Jian and Yunyi back then. No one could deny that. After some small talk and packing up the invitations, Qin Yiru went to prepare dinner. Yun Jian and Ce followed Gu Junjian out for a stroll at the small park near the villa. There were not many people strolling in the park, but the scenery was quite nice. When they came back from their stroll, dinner was ready. "Wash your hands and come eat." Qin Yiru spoke when she saw Yun Jian, Ce, and Ce coming back from their stroll, bringing out the last dish from the kitchen. Yun Jian, Ce, and Ce answered and went forward. Qin Yiru called Xiao Yunju, Ce, and Ce down from upstairs as well. The table of delicacies was filled and the group enjoyed the meal. Other than Yunyi, Dong Ruan, and Dong Ruan's son who had gone out to visit friends and relatives, everyone else was present. Yunyi was a student of the first senior high school. She lived on campus as soon as the school started. As for Dong Ruan, she didn't go home at all during the new year because she was a high-ranking official and was used to carrying her briefcase everywhere. During the first few days of the new year, Dong Ruan was so busy that she was nowhere to be seen. As for the past few days, Dong Ruan was free, so she took the child to visit relatives and friends. Even now, she was still busy. Dong Ruan also came back halfway, but she didn't stay at home for long. Although Dong Ruan's husband had passed away early, Dong Ruan was filial. She treated her deceased husband's parents as her own parents and supported them. Qin Yiru knew that Dong Ruan had probably brought her son to the countryside to stay with her in-laws. Wow, so many dishes. As soon as Duanli sat down at the table, she was attracted by the variety of dishes in front of her. She couldn't help but exclaim, "Eat more if you like it," Qin Yiru said as she set the table for Duanli with a smile. Duanli nodded vigorously at Qin Yiru's gentle look. "Yes, yes. Mother Qin, you're so nice." Duanli and Duanya ate the most during dinner. The two children were like wolves who had been starved for days, devouring all the dishes on the table. Qin Yiru's heart ached for them. Why did the two children have to suffer so much? It was just an ordinary dinner, but they said that there were many dishes and they ate with relish. "Eat slowly. Don't choke." Qin Yiru's eyes sparkled as she reminded them carefully. Duanli nodded with rice in her mouth. After dinner, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya went upstairs again. Chapter 702. Qin Yiru placed the plate of cantaloupe on the low glass table in front of the sofa in the living room and said, "These are freshly cut cantaloupes. I saw an old man selling vegetables at the market today and he said he planted them himself. They're very fresh and hygienic. Come and have a taste." Yun Jian poked a piece of cantaloupe with a toothpick and tasted it carefully. Ce, on the other hand, snatched the toothpick she had used and picked up a small piece of cantaloupe as well, chewing softly as he swallowed it. He smiled slightly. When he saw Yun Jian glaring at him angrily again, he felt as though he had just eaten honey. However, he still smiled and praised, delicious. Qin Yiru did not see Ce snatching Yun Jian's toothpick, but Gu Junjian did. However, Gu Junjian raised his head and laughed heartily without saying anything. To Gu Junjian, children should be left to figure out their own feelings. Oh right, I'll be making a trip back to Xinjiang town tomorrow. I'll take the opportunity to send out all the invitations tomorrow, Qin Yiru said with a smile as she took a bite of the cantaloupe. I'll go with you tomorrow, Gu Junjian said. Qin Yiru was going to her parents' house to send out the invitations and tell them about it. Naturally, Gu Junjian had to go as well. After all, it was basic etiquette. When Yun Jian heard that Gu Junjian was going to Xinjiang town, she pursed her lips and glared at Ce without saying anything else. Actually, Yun Jian was a little worried about Qin Yiru going back to Xinjiang town to send out the wedding invitations. Back when she had started New Cruise, her nominal grandmother, Qin Yiru's ex-mother-in-law, had asked Qin Yiru for money. If news of Qin Yiru's remarriage got out, Yun Jian was afraid that Lu Lanhua would stir up trouble again. In spite of it, Yun Jian was relieved with Gu Junjian around. After finishing the cantaloupe, Yun Jian told Qin Yiru that she was going to New Cruise. Qin Yiru turned and ran upstairs to get a jacket before chasing after Yun Jian, shouting, "Xiao Jian, it's cold outside at night. Put on a jacket before you go out." However, just as Qin Yiru went upstairs to get a jacket, Yun Jian was already out of the house. I'll bring it to her. Once he heard that Yun Jian had gone out without a jacket, Ce went over to take the jacket from Qin Yiru and chased after her with his long legs. Slow down. Qin Yiru could not help reminding her when she saw Ce running after her. We can care less about the kids in the future. They're all grown up now. Gu Junjian said to Qin Yiru as he swallowed the last piece of cantaloupe with a chuckle. How can we as parents not care? Qin Yiru sighed and went to Gu Junjian. Spring was coming and the weather was gradually turning warmer. The temperature in the day could already reach around 30 degrees Celsius, but it would turn cold at night. Yun Jian felt a gust of cold wind just as she stepped out of the mansion, but she did not turn back. Yun Jian was only wearing 2 layers of clothing, a thin autumn jacket underneath. When the cold wind blew, she still felt herself shivering. Are you dumb? Running out without a jacket? Ce's rich male voice came from behind, his magnetic voice coming from between his thin lips. Yun Jian was stunned. In the next second, a jacket was draped over Yun Jian. Chapter 703. Yun Jian felt warmth in her heart as Ce led her forward. Although she was scolded by Ce for being dumb, her heart was like a cup of warm milk that was about to be poured out. It was a novel feeling. Ce took Yun Jian to New Cruise first. The company was relatively peaceful now and Zhang Jifan was in charge of it. Not long ago, Yun Jian had arranged for Zhang Jifan, who was managing New Cruise for her, and Su Zetian, the former boss of Dragon Head Gang who was managing Falcon Hall on her behalf, to meet each other. Yun Jian had also arranged for New Cruise and Falcon Hall to work together to improve. One was New Cruise that had made a name for itself in the country, while the other was the biggest mafia in Longmen City that had replaced Flying Passage's position as the second mafia in Jia province. With the combination of the two forces, New Cruise and Falcon Hall were invincible in Longmen City alone, let alone anywhere else. When news of New Cruise and Falcon Hall's collaboration was first spread, it had caused a stir in Longmen City. After all, both of them were the most powerful forces in Longmen City. Now that they were working together, who else in Longmen City could go against them? What outsiders did not know was that, be it New Cruise that had stirred up a storm in the car marketing industry or Falcon Hall that had changed its name and was led by a woman named Slang Luo to become the second mafia in Jia province, they all had one thing in common: they were now just one of Yun Jian's forces. If the news were to spread, the whole of Longmen City would probably be embarrassed. Sister Jian, Su Zetian wants me to tell you that Zhe Province's top mafia group will be gathering all the major mafia groups in Zhe Province in 2 weeks' time. They've invited various international businessmen and politicians. It'll be a grand occasion, so please attend as Falcon Hall's representative. Zhang Jifan conveyed the message to Yun Jian on behalf of Su Zetian. Zhang Jifan was in charge of new crews now, so he did not encounter any bottlenecks. Su Zetian was heavily injured before the new year, so he could not attend the Zhe Province Mafia gathering this time. However, this gathering was different from the usual gang gatherings. For this gang gathering, Zhe Province's #1 gang, the Leopard Pack, had invited many international businessmen and politicians, including some top figures. Under such circumstances, as long as one was smart, one wouldn't let go of this opportunity to make more connections. Okay. Yun Jian raised her eyebrows slightly and agreed. As for Falcon Hall, Su Zetian had left a lot of things to Duan Lei because of his serious injuries. However, Duan Lei still couldn't put on airs. After all, he hadn't been the boss before. After Yun Jian agreed, Zhang Jifan felt relieved. After staying in new crews for a while, Yun Jian and Ce went home. New crews was not far from the villa, so the round trip did not take up much time. It was just a walk. Just as he reached home, before he even stepped into the house, a female voice called out from behind him, Yun Jian. Yun Jian turned around and saw Lan Su in a black outfit. The tall and slender Lan Su was the center of attention no matter where she went. At the moment, Lan Su was supporting a man covered in blood with her shoulder. Yun Jian took a closer look and quickly realized that the man was Adam. She was stunned. What's wrong with him? Ce asked Lan Su before Yun Jian did. After all, he was Ce's subordinate. If something happened to Adam, Ce would naturally be upset. Someone attacked us just now, Lan Su had no more strength to speak up to this point. Her whole body leaned forward, and just as she was about to fall to the ground with a thud, Yun Jian reached out and held Lan Su as fast as she could, preventing Lan Su from falling to the ground. Chapter 704. Come in. There was a glint in Ce's deep eyes as he spoke. Although she did not know what had happened, Ce spoke calmly. Yun Jian nodded and helped Lan Su into the house. Xiao Jian, you guys are back. Qin Yiru knew that Yun Jian and Ce had returned when she heard the door open. She turned around and asked at the same time. Before she could finish, however, Qin Yiru saw Yun Jian helping Lan Su who had fainted into the house. Ce, who was supporting Adam who was covered in blood, followed closely behind. Adam and Emosen stayed in the villa and followed Ce all the time, so Qin Yiru recognized them right away. She was so shocked that the bowl in her hand fell to the floor before she ran over and shouted, What's going on? What happened to the two kids? Emosen came to the staircase from his room when he heard the commotion. When he saw Adam covered in blood, his eyelids twitched and he jumped down from the railing on the second floor without a word. The height of one floor was nothing to Mo. Senator Qin Yiru had already helped Yun Jian to help Lan Su into the house. Mo. Sen, on the other hand, ran to Adam. They helped Lan Su and Adam to the big sofa on the first floor to lie down. Qin Yiru was pacing around anxiously. What's wrong with the kids? Why did something like this happen to them? I'll go to the shop not far away and call for an ambulance. Qin Yiru said and planned to run upstairs to get her wallet to call the shop outside. Mom, don't go. Yun Jian's icy voice rang. Yun Jian's icy tone made Gu Junjian, who was about to stop Qin Yiru from taking out her phone from her pocket, pause. Xiao Jian? This person had fainted. And he was covered in blood. Let's send him to the hospital. Any later, Anne? Qin Yiru was so scared that her hands were shaking. When Qin Yiru's hands were severely injured by the loom, she had already lost all feeling. She originally thought that her hand would be gone, but she didn't expect the hospital to treat it. Therefore, once something happened, Qin Yiru always believed that she could send the patient to the hospital as soon as possible. This concept was indeed correct. However, Xinjiang Town's hospital did not have the standards and equipment to treat Qin Yiru's hands at the time. Back in Xinjiang Town's hospital, Qin Yiru's hands would have been amputated if Yunjian had not acted as the lead surgeon. You can't go to the hospital, CE repeated what Yunjian had just said. Huh? Ah. AE, why are you the same as Xiao Jian? If we don't send this person to the hospital quickly and something really happens, then... Qin Yiru was obviously scared out of her wits, but to her, it was true that she had acted out of concern for Lan Su and Adam's safety. I know medicine, Yunjian's voice rang while Qin Yiru was at a loss. Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian were stunned. Huh? Xiao Jian? How could you? Qin Yiru did not believe it, of course. Qin Yiru was indeed stunned when she heard Yunjian's words, but she was the child she raised herself. How could she not know how capable her daughter was? Chapter 705. What Yunjian said to Qin Yiru was indeed a little overboard, but it was the truth. Moreover, it was an emergency now. Yunjian did not have the time to explain so much to Qin Yiru. Mo-san, go to my room and get the medical kit. It's under the wardrobe facing the entrance, the first cabinet on the left, Yunjian told Mo-san before Qin Yiru could react. Yes. Once Mo-san heard that Yunjian knew medicine and had medical equipment at home, he sprinted upstairs almost at the same time. He looked like something would happen to Adam if he was a second late. Xiao Jian. Qin Yiru was surprised. She could not help looking at Yunjian and asked softly. It's okay, we believe in her. Gu Junjian pulled Qin Yiru into her arms and comforted her softly. Lan Su did not have any external injuries, so it was hard to tell where she was hurt, but Adam's condition was much worse. There was a bullet in Adam's left knee while his shoulder seemed to have been stabbed several times. There were numerous wounds of various sizes all over his body. It was a ghastly sight. We have to prepare for surgery immediately. I don't have all the equipment here. Yunjian frowned. The reason why Lan Su and Adam could not be sent to the hospital was simple. Lan Su was from Yulong mainland. According to Lan Su, people from Yulong mainland had different physiques from people on Earth, so they could not be sent to the hospital. Adam was shot all over. If he was sent to the hospital, it would no doubt cause a huge uproar. The use of firearms was prohibited in Country Z. Once it was discovered, the consequences were severe. Therefore, both Yunjian and CE agreed that Adam should not be sent to the hospital. It's here. Mo-san had already jumped down from the second floor with ease, and he was carrying a white medical box in his hand. Qin Yiru did not expect her daughter to have a medical kit. She was stunned for a while. She suddenly felt that her daughter was different from before. After spending some time together, the current Xiao Jian could always surprise her, which made Qin Yiru suspicious more than once. However, no matter what, Qin Yiru would never think that her daughter was not her daughter. Therefore, she did not ask Yunjian about it. Yunjian took the medical kit from Mo-san and took out the items in the kit as fast as she could out of habit. At the same time, she said to Mo-san, go to Falcon Hall's headquarters and bring Falcon Hall's private doctor, a man named Su Zifan, here. Tell him to bring the surgical tools. He must be quick. When Su Zetian was seriously injured, it was Yunjian who was the chief surgeon. Then, with Su Zifan's assistance, the operation was easily completed. Su Zifan could only be considered as half of Falcon Hall's private doctor before Yunjian hired him to be Falcon Hall's private doctor directly. Yunjian was halfway through her words when Mo-san dashed out. Since it concerned Adam's life and death, Mo-san was duty-bound, just like how Adam had done for him back then. Auntie, let's go out first. CE was not well versed in medicine, but he knew that it was disadvantageous for the operation to be carried out with too many people around. He went to Qin Yiru and told her. In spite of it, Qin Yiru was not in the mood for CE at all. She looked at Yunjian and asked in surprise, Xiao Jian, you have dealings with Falcon Hall too? Falcon Hall was the top mafia group in Longmen City. Qin Yiru knew that Xiao Jian was the director of new crews, but it was enough to shock her. Chapter 706. Yes, Yun Jian nodded without hesitation when she met Qin Yiru's probing gaze. After a pause, Yun Jian pursed her red lips and said softly, "I do have dealings with the people from Falcon Hall. Mom, you know that New Cruise is just a legitimate force. You've probably heard about the collaboration between Falcon Hall and New Cruise." Qin Yiru was relieved after Yun Jian's explanation. After all, there was news that New Cruise and Falcon Hall were collaborating. However, Yun Jian did not reveal that she was the boss of Falcon Hall. In fact, Qin Yiru would be more worried about her if she revealed her identity. After all, it would not be a problem if she was just a company's director. However, if Qin Yiru found out that she was the boss of Falcon Hall, it would be a huge problem. By then, the fact that she was not the real Yun Jian would be exposed as well. Yun Jian did not stop decorating the surgery site. "Yiru, let's go out first. We need good air circulation during surgery. Yun Jian will be fine. Don't worry, we have specialized medical personnel in the military who have taught them all this. Don't worry, she'll be fine." Gu Junjian pulled Qin Yiru out. Gu Junjian already knew that Yun Jian was slaying God, so Gu Junjian quickly came out to smooth things over for Yun Jian. At the same time, he helped Yun Jian lie. Qin Yiru was skeptical at first, but after hearing Gu Junjian's explanation, she believed him immediately and followed Gu Junjian out. After Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian walked out of the door, Emosen rushed in with a middle-aged man in less than 10 minutes. "Young madam, is this the person?" Emosen suddenly tossed the middle-aged man who was carrying a bunch of medical boxes in front of Yun Jian. Falcon Hall's boss. Su Zifan recognized Yun Jian immediately when he saw her. Just as he was about to call out her name, he was stunned by Yun Jian's hand gesture. Yun Jian put her right index finger to her lips and made a shu gesture. Then, Yun Jian spoke as expected, "All of you go out. Only Su Zifan and I will be in here for the surgery." Ce put a hand in his pocket. He did not know medicine, so it was useless for him to stay. Therefore, Ce walked up the stairs and told Yun Jian gently, "I'll go watch Xiao Zhu and the rest." Xiao Yunzhu, Duanli, and Duanya were still upstairs. When Ce went up the stairs, Emosen told Yun, "I'll be outside." After that, Emosen left the place. Su Zifan looked at the man who suddenly rushed into his house and took him and the tools for the surgery out of the living room. He looked at Yun Jian and said carefully, Yun Jian directly cut off Su Zifan's nonsense, "Be my assistant and I'll give you 15 seconds to prepare." Only then did Su Zifan see the man lying on the sofa covered in blood. He swallowed a breath and walked forward. The three people standing at the door waited for more than an hour. However, because Yun Jian was in the room performing the surgery, no one dared to enter the room or ask. Until Su Zifan ran out of the room to open the door, Emosen rushed into the room. Seeing that Adam lying on the sofa had stopped bleeding and had regained his color, he breathed a sigh of relief. Yun Jian had already placed Lan Su in her room. Lan Su was just too weak and fainted. Chapter 707. Yun Jian was not surprised to see that Lan Su had woken up. She picked up a cup of tea that she had prepared earlier and handed it to Lan Su. She then said, "Don't be anxious. Have some tea first. Adam is fine." Lan Su and Adam had come back together. Needless to say, something must have happened while they were walking together. Yun Jian was already a little suspicious. However, she still helped Lan Su up slowly. She let Lan Su lean against the headboard and let her drink some water first. "Is he really all right?" Lan Su heard Yun Jian's words. She obediently swallowed the water in the cup before asking in a serious tone. Naturally, she was referring to Adam. "I just operated on him. He should wake up in a while." Yun Jian glanced at Lan Su. Lan Su and Adam had just met yesterday. Moreover, the two of them had been at loggerheads since the beginning. In the end, it had only been a short while and Lan Su had already started to care about Adam. Lan Su's pale lips regained some color. She nodded and then explained to Yunjian, "It's the people from the Murong clan of the Yulong continent. They're also here." Lan Su's beautiful face gradually paled when she mentioned the Murong clan. Murong clan? Yunjian could not help but frown slightly. It was the first time she had heard this name. Lan Su nodded at Yunjian and then began to explain. The Murong clan was one of the great aristocratic families of the Yulong continent. However, thousands of years ago, when the sorcerer god of the sorcerer tribe was still alive, the Murong clan was not even a millionth of the sorcerer tribe. It could be said that the Murong clan thousands of years ago was just a small aristocratic family. Its status was so weak that it could be ignored. However, after the sorcerer god's fall, the Murong clan gradually rose to prominence. Today, the Murong clan had already become one of the four great aristocratic families of the Yulong continent. Its status was even close to surpassing the current number one aristocratic family of the Yulong continent. The shaman tribe, which was gradually declining, became the Murong clan's toy. As for today, Adam was dissatisfied with the draw he had with Lan Su yesterday, which was why he went to challenge Lan Su to a duel, but he did not expect that he would run into the people from the Murong clan. That was why today's incident happened. With your strength, you should be able to defeat the Murong family, right? When Yunjian heard this, she could not help but ask Lan Su. Lan Su suddenly paused. After a few seconds, she said calmly, "On Earth, our strength is greatly limited. That's why we usually don't use the abilities of the Yulong continent here. Otherwise, we'll have to pay a huge price." Lan Su then added, "The members of the Murong family are no match for me." Then, Yunjian turned to look at Lan Su with a smile on her face. Lan Su, who was almost embarrassed by Yunjian's stare, finally got to the point. "That's why the people from the Murong clan brought guns. I couldn't use the abilities of the Yulong continent easily, so I only brought darts. However, I didn't expect that he would block those bullets and bayonets in order to save me." Lan Su tossed aside the skills she had learned in the Yulong continent. She was not weak, and darts were her forte. However, there were many people from the Murong clan at that time. Although Adam was powerful, he was outnumbered. Chapter 708. What are the consequences of using your powers on Earth? Yunjian asked as she took the empty cup from Lan Su's hand and placed it on the bedside table. She gently laid Lan Su back under the blanket. "I won't be able to cultivate for 100 years. Lan Su watched as Yunjian covered herself with the blanket. Her thin lips moved slightly, and a trace of seriousness appeared on her cold face. Even Yunjian couldn't help but move her lips when she heard Lan Su's words. 100 years was a person's lifetime. Most people didn't even live to be 100 years old. Old people in their 80s or 90s were already considered to have lived a long life. Using Yulong mainland's powers on Earth was equivalent to not being able to take a single step forward for 100 years, no matter how hard one cultivated. This was a huge price to pay. It was no wonder. The younger generation of the Murong family that Lan Su mentioned, including the people from Yulong mainland who came to Earth, would definitely not use Yulong mainland's powers. After all, stopping one's cultivation for 100 years was crueler than taking a cultivator's life. Yunjian hesitated for a moment, then paused to ask. At the critical moment, Lan Su had already made her move. This meant that Lan Su's cultivation wouldn't be able to progress for the next 100 years. "I'm fine." Lan Su revealed a sweet smile. Her usual cold face coupled with her current smile made Yunjian's heart skip a beat. "Have a good rest. I'll go downstairs and take a look," Yunjian said as she tucked Lan Su under the blanket, then walked downstairs. However, just as she walked out of her bedroom, she saw Ce standing at the top of the stairs. His tall and slender figure was very eye-catching. Ce's black hair moved. He turned slightly towards Yunjian, then walked towards Yunjian. How was it? Ce looked at Yunjian. He raised his eyebrows and continued to ask. Yunjian then told Ce everything that Lan Su had told her. He stood by the wall near the staircase so that the people downstairs wouldn't see him. When Ce heard this, he frowned slightly. After raising his eyebrows, Ce said to Yunjian, "You have to be careful in the future." "What do you mean?" Yunjian quickly guessed Ce's thoughts and raised her eyes slightly. "Yes." Ce nodded. Then, without giving Yunjian time to think, he held Yunjian's little hand and went downstairs. Ce's meaning was simple. Since the Murong family from the Yulong continent had come to Earth, and the younger generation of the Murong family had died at the hands of Lan Su, the Murong family would definitely not let this matter rest. With Gu Yunjian's help, Qin Yiru did not have many suspicions. In the next few days, Yunjian did not go to the military training camp. Chu Ning and the others had already gone to the military academy in Min City. Adam was originally living in the villa. For a short period of time, Lan Su was also living here. Qin Yiru was kind and took care of them every day with good food and drinks. The days passed by quickly. Yunjian also went back and forth between her home, school, new cruise, and Falcon Hall. Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's wedding invitations were sent out. 2 weeks later, Adam, who had long regained consciousness, recovered a lot. These few days, Mo Sen and Lan Su fought to take care of Adam. Adam felt that he was 100 times more energetic. This week, Yunjian also received the verdict of Duan Li's father, Duan Shi, for abusing his child. Prison term, 2 years. This verdict was because Duan Shi had been detained by the police for abusing his child and refused to repent despite repeated warnings. Chapter 709. On this Saturday morning, Yunjian led Zhang Xiaofeng and Yun Yi home after their morning exercise and went home with Yun Yi. Ce had already returned to an Hun group with only Mo Sen tagging along. As for Adam, Lan Su was taking care of him at home due to his serious injury. Perhaps it was because Adam had risked his life to save him, but Lan Su was much nicer to him now. Ce had a feeling that Yunjian was involved in the assassination attempt previously, as well as Adam and Lan Su's encounter this time, so Ce had returned to an Hun group to investigate the matter thoroughly. Yunjian took a hot bath when she got home and changed into a clean set of clothes before dragging a small suitcase out of the house. Qin Yiru was no longer a cleaner in New Cruise since it was Yunjian's company after all. If Qin Yiru was still working in her daughter's company as a cleaner, she would feel bad for Yunjian's reputation. After all, Xiao Jian's status was not what it used to be. As her mother, she could not embarrass her daughter no matter what. Moreover, Gu Junjian supported Qin Yiru not going to work, so Qin Yiru cooked at home. Xiao Jian, walk slowly. You have to be worried when you're outside. Don't get tricked. Don't listen to strangers. Qin Yiru ran out and shouted behind Yunjian when she saw her dragging her suitcase out of the house. Mom, I know. I know, Mom. Moreover, I'll be back tomorrow. Don't worry. Yunjian turned to her side, her petite frame looking even more alluring. Yunjian then flashed a smile at Qin Yiru and strode ahead. She lied to Qin Yiru again, saying that she would not be able to make it back tonight because New Cruise wanted her to attend a business meeting. In fact, she was going to attend a gang gathering in Jia Province. However, as the top gang in Jia Province, Leopard Pack did invite a representative from New Cruise. Since Su Zetian was too injured to participate, Yunjian had no choice but to represent Falcon Hall. Zhang Jifan would be going with him, but Zhang Jifan would be representing New Cruise. Qin Yu had been there when she attended the National Gang Tea Party, but Qin Yu was still in her hometown now. It was only natural for her to get along well with her family since they could reconcile. When Yunjian arrived at New Cruise's store, she could see Zhang Jifan waving at her from afar. Sister Jian. Zhang Jifan greeted respectfully when he saw Yunjian. Yes. Yunjian nodded and then asked, Is everything ready? Yes, Sister Jian, we can leave any time, Zhang Jifan told Yun Jian as he pointed at a mini tour bus behind him. They were all waiting for Yun Jian's order. Let's go, Yun Jian said and dragged her suitcase forward. There were only 2 people with Yun Jian on this trip: Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei. Su Zetian could not go due to his injury. Leopard Pack was the top gang in Zhe Province and was based in Hang City, the provincial capital of Zhe Province. It was not far from Longmen City, only a 2-hour drive at most. Yun Jian was going to Hang City today and would only stay for a night before returning the next day. She had brought her suitcase with her because she had brought her firearms. When Yun Jian and Zhang Jifan boarded the tour bus, Duan Lei, who sat in front, turned to look at them. Sister Jian, I'm driving? Yun Jian nodded softly. Chapter 7:10. Duan Lei drove steadily. By the time he reached Hang City, it was already past 9 in the morning. Sister Jian, let's drop off our luggage at Xian Garden Hotel first. Duan Lei's eyes were glued to the front as he drove, but his voice was directed at Yun Jian, who was behind him. Yun Jian replied with a nod as she looked out the window. Xian Garden Hotel was a 5-star hotel that Leopard's gang had arranged for all the major gangs in Zhe Province who were attending the gathering, as well as businessmen, politicians, and internationally renowned figures from afar. The gathering this time was at 8 in the evening. It would be late by the time it ended, so Leopard's gang had prepared a suite for everyone who came from afar. They could check in as long as they reported their identities to the receptionist at the front desk. This was how Leopard's gang's boss treated the guests from afar. Sister Jian, let me help you with your luggage. When they reached the bottom of the stairs of Xian Garden Hotel, Yun Jian's luggage could not be moved anymore. It had to be lifted, so Duan Lei ran over to help Yun Jian with it. Yun Jian had already retracted the luggage handle swiftly and was 1 step ahead of Duan Lei to lift the luggage. It's okay, I'll do it myself, Yun Jian said. As she spoke, Yun Jian carried the luggage to the stairs of Xian Garden Hotel easily. Seeing this, Duan Lei didn't insist and followed closely behind. Just as they reached the entrance, they were greeted by a mother and son pair. The mother who walked in front was dressed to the nines. She looked to be in her 20s or 30s as she strutted toward the entrance with her son swaying her hips. Behind this young mother and child, there was a large group of bodyguards dressed in black. Coincidentally, the group of people and Yun Jian met one another, one entering and one exiting. Yun Jian did not mind. After she went up the stairs of Xian Garden Hotel, she put down her luggage and pulled the lever again to drag it forward. Duan Lei and Zhang Jifan followed behind Yun Jian as well. Only one door was open at the entrance of Xian New Garden Hotel. The other doors were closed as usual. Yun Jian was already 1 step ahead and was about to enter the New Garden Hotel. Duan Lei and Zhang Jifan followed behind Yun Jian. Just as Yun Jian was about to enter the hotel, the young mother saw her and frowned slightly. Then she looked at Yun Jian with disgust, as though she was unhappy that Yun Jian had entered the hotel before her and blocked her way out. Therefore, when Yun Jian was about to enter the hotel, the young mother opposite her quickened her pace. Yun Jian had already noticed the young mother's actions. She frowned slightly and acted as if she didn't notice the young mother taking large strides towards her. Disregarding everything else, the young mother was definitely a competitive person. Just as Yun Jian was about to enter the hotel, the young mother pulled her son's right shoulder and tried to use her right shoulder to knock Yun Jian as though nothing had happened. Yun Jian's eyes flashed. She suddenly realized what was going on. She was 1 step faster than the young mother. She reached out to pull the lever and swiftly lifted her luggage to dodge to the side. The bodyguards behind the young mother were dumbfounded. How could this young lady be so agile? Chapter 7:11. The young mother was trying to teach Yun Jian a lesson when she suddenly bumped into Yun Jian with her child. The girl had seen her just now. How dare she walk through the door before her? How bold of him. Did she know who she was? It was just that the young mother did not expect Yunjian to react so quickly when she bumped into Yunjian with her shoulder, dodging the impact instantly. The young mother, on the other hand, could not stop herself. She was still standing in Xian Yuan Hotel. The hotel floor was made of glossy tiles and the cleaners had just mopped the floor not too long ago, so the floor was rather smooth. Therefore, she accidentally slipped and the young mother pulled her son forward and fell heavily. "Madam! Young master! Watch out!" The bodyguards behind her yelled and rushed forward when they saw the situation, but they could only protect the young mother's son in the end. The young mother, on the other hand, fell hard to the ground beside Yunjian. The fall made the young mother feel like her nose that was smashed into the ground was going to dent as her head sank. In the next second, excruciating pain spread through her body. Ah! Ah! It was only after the young mother fell that the bodyguards behind her reacted and helped her up. By then, the young mother was already spasming with hatred. She pushed all the blame onto Yunjian. When she was helped up by the bodyguards, the young mother felt like her bones were cracked. She was in so much pain that she could barely stand. In spite of it, the more pain she felt, the more the young mother blamed Yunjian for all the mistakes. "It's all your fault. Why did you dodge? If you didn't, I wouldn't have fallen. Are you crazy?" The young mother pointed at Yunjian and yelled as she was supported by the bodyguards. Yunjian's eyes glinted. She did not expect the young mother to blame her. "Sister Jian," it was obvious that the young mother was being unreasonable. Duan Lei and Zhang Jifan, who were behind Yunjian, saw through the whole story and were about to stand up for Yunjian. Yunjian raised her hand to signal them to keep quiet. Duan Lei and Zhang Jifan were men who obeyed Yunjian's orders. Since Sister Jian forbade them from doing anything, they kept their mouths shut. In this era, the concept of wealth and social status was very strong. Therefore, even if some rich people were unreasonable, they could still distort the truth. Some rich people's greatest pleasure was to show off in front of people who seemed to be of lower status than them. This type of person was someone who had nothing better to do. And clearly, this young mother was such a person. "You were the one who bumped into me first. If I didn't dodge, would I have stood there and let you knock me down?" Yunjian glanced at the young mother from the corner of her eyes, her icy voice laced with a chilling murderous intent. The young mother couldn't help but shiver. But when she thought of her current identity, she raised her head and shouted back at Yunjian, "It's your honor to be hit by me." As soon as these words were spoken, most of the people present could not bear to continue listening. Yunjian frowned slightly. Compared to this young mother in front of him, the people he had met before were not the best. "Ha!" Yunjian sneered. After Yunjian cackled, she turned to leave, not wanting to be entangled with the young mother. Chapter 712. Yunjian planned to bring Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei into the hotel, ignoring the young mother's nonsense. However, the young mother's scream came from behind. Yunjian curled her lips into a smile. Longwen Group? Longwen Group was one of the top companies in Zhe province. It was well known in the entire province. Unlike New Cruise had just risen to prominence even though it was already well known throughout the country. On the other hand, Longwen Group had been established since the Republic of China. After a few generations of research and promotion, Longwen Group had become Zhe province's spokesperson. She had heard that Longwen Group was close to Zhe province's top mafia group, Leopard Pack. She did not expect them to have such a relationship. The wife of Longwen Group's CEO and the wife of Leopard Pack's boss were sisters. It was no wonder that Longwen Group and Leopard Pack were two unshakable forces in Zhe province. There were even people who claimed that if Longwen Group or Leopard Pack were to be destroyed one day, it would be more unbelievable than the sky falling. Seeing Yunjian pause, the young mother thought that Yunjian was really afraid. She walked over with a cold smile and threatened Yunjian, "Are you afraid? Apologize to me. Otherwise, I'll teach you a lesson even if you're just a little girl." The young mother rubbed her arm and scoffed coldly. Her name was Kai Wenhui, the wife of Longwen Group's CEO. What was even more terrifying was that her brother-in-law was the boss of Zhe province's top mafia group, Leopard Pack. With such an identity, Kai Wenhui was proud of herself in front of everyone and rarely caused trouble. That's right. You've offended our CEO's wife. If you want to leave, you'll have to ask for our permission first. One of the burly bodyguards strode forward as if he wanted to show off in front of Kai Wenhui. He turned around and yelled at Yun Jian. Seeing this bodyguard's arrogance, the other bodyguards stood out one after another. It was as if Yun Jian was the one who offended Kai Wenhui first. Oh. Yun Jian's deep eyes narrowed as she scanned the crowd with a chilling gaze. In the next second, just as Yun Jian was about to speak, a loud female voice rang out. Sister, she's my friend. Don't make things difficult for her. Hearing the voice, a sweet-looking young girl wearing a pink glazed dress ran towards them. She ran up to Yun Jian happily, then put her arm around Yun Jian's shoulder and said to Kai Wenhui. Yun Jian's eyelids twitched. In the next second, this girl in a pink glazed dress suddenly appeared and put her hand on her shoulder. Although Yun Jian was able to react in time, she did not distance herself from the girl's approach. When Kai Wenhui suddenly saw this young girl, her face was instantly covered with disgust. Kai Wenhui looked at the young girl who had suddenly appeared. She viciously pointed her finger at the young girl, and scolded her in a low voice, without a care for her image. Scram! I'm not your sister. You're just an illegitimate daughter. You don't deserve to call me sister. B*TCH. Don't let me see you. Kai Wenhui yelled as she left. After seeing this young girl who had suddenly appeared, Kai Wenhui practically grabbed her son and fled with a group of bodyguards. She was not even interested in dealing with Yun Jian. Yun Jian was slightly suspicious. However, she saw this young girl in a pink glazed dress reach out her hand to Yun Jian. Hello, I'm Dai Qingqing. The situation just now was urgent, so I called you my friend. Sorry. Chapter 713. Looking at Dai Qingqing's sincere face, Yun Jian also pursed her lips and smiled. Hello, I'm Yun Jian. Yun Jian reached out and shook Dai Qingqing's hand. Hee hee. Dai Qingqing retracted her hand and smiled. She had a bright smile on her face and looked like an innocent young girl. Yun Jian naturally understood that if Dai Qingqing hadn't stood up in time and said that she was her friend, the young mother wouldn't have let it go. Therefore, strictly speaking, Dai Qingqing had helped him this time. Dai Qingqing smiled and asked Yun Jian, by the way, how did you offend her just now? The two of them were considered acquaintances after shaking hands. Yun Jian briefly explained what happened just now. Dai Qingqing felt a little indignant for Yun Jian. She has always been like this, self-centered. In fact, I've long disliked her. Dai Qingqing was a little discouraged. But I'm just an illegitimate daughter. If grandfather didn't acknowledge me, I would have been kicked out by them. Dai Qingqing's friendliness made Yun Jian listen to her unconsciously. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei had already gone to the front desk to report their identities and then received the keys to 3 rooms. Because Dai Qingqing also stayed in this hotel and was already familiar with it, she led Yun Jian and the other 2 upstairs. As she walked, she told Yun Jian about her own matters. Dai Qingqing was indeed Kai Wenhui's younger sister, but they had the same father but different mothers. Dai Qingqing's mother was Kai Wenhui's father's mistress. In this way, Dai Qingqing was indeed a spurned illegitimate daughter. My mother passed away when I was 10 years old after giving birth to me. Later, grandfather insisted on bringing me back despite the family's objections. Grandfather also notarized 1/3 of the company's inheritance rights to my name, so the Kai family hates me but doesn't dare to touch me. Dai Qingqing confided to Yun Jian. Although Dai Qingqing and Yun Jian just met, her intuition told her that Yun Jian was definitely a friend worth making. Kai Wenhui and Dai Qingqing's father had a total of 3 daughters. One was his eldest daughter, Kai Wenhui, who was now married to the CEO of Longwen Group. One was his second daughter, Kai Wenling, who was now married to the boss of the Leopards gang. Dai Qingqing followed her mother's surname. After all, she was an illegitimate daughter. The chairman of Kai Wenhui and Dai Qingqing's father's company was their grandfather. The reason why Kai Wenhui didn't dare to touch Dai Qingqing was that their grandfather had given Dai Qingqing the right to inherit the company's shares. Their grandfather only had 3 granddaughters, so the company would only be handed over to the 3 of them. Although it was very complicated, Yun Jian still listened to Dai Qingqing. Sometimes, fate came in a very subtle way. Clearly, some people had just met each other and could not even be considered friends. But even so, 2 people could act like they had been friends for many years. To Yun Jian, Dai Qingqing was one of them. Perhaps he was the only one. Later, Dai Qingqing simply chatted with Yun Jian in her room. And Yun Jian had nothing to do anyway, so she chatted with Dai Qingqing. At noon, Dai Qingqing volunteered to take Yun Jian and the other 2 to a nearby restaurant for boxed lunches. Chapter 714. Although Dai Qingqing was not favored in the Kai family, her grandfather was the head of the household and she was the one he doted on the most. The Kai family's company was well known in the entire country Z. Therefore, Kai Wenhui and Kai Wenling could not do anything about old Master Kai's doting on Dai Qingqing. Usually, Kai Wenhui could only talk to Dai Qingqing, but she didn't dare to do anything to her. What Kai Wenhui feared the most was that Dai Qingqing would complain to old Master Kai and Kai Wenhui would be done for then. Dai Qingqing, on the other hand, was lacking in everything except money. Old Master Kai doted on her. Therefore, after Dai Qingqing forced Yun Jian, Duan Ling Tian, and Duan Ling Tian to a meal, she suggested going to the skating rink. Yun Jian had nowhere to go in the afternoon, so she agreed to Dai Qingqing's invitation. Since she had nowhere to go and had nothing to do in the hotel room for the whole afternoon, she accepted Dai Qingqing's invitation. Then let's go now. Dai Qingqing said when she saw that Yun Jian, Duan Ling Tian, and Duan Ling Tian were done eating. Sister Jian, we won't be going, Zhang Jifan stood up and told Yun Jian with a smile. Duan Lei shared the same thought as Zhang Jifan. Perhaps the younger generation liked to go to crowded places to play, but for people like Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei who had lived half their lives, their interest in the skating rink might not be as interesting as sitting around and playing cards with a group of people. Okay. Yun Jian nodded. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei left with Yun Jian's order. Seeing that Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei had left, Dai Qingqing turned to look at Yun Jian and asked the question that had been bothering her, Yun Jian, aren't they older than you? Why did they call you Sister Jian? Dai Qingqing was the kind of girl who was naive and romantic. She was usually bubbly and could be a little smart when necessary. This was evident when she helped Yun Jian scare away Kai Wenhui when they first met. Because Yun Jian suddenly kept him in suspense. Halfway through her sentence, she curled her lips and said, because I'm their boss. Her tone sounded like she was joking. Dai Qingqing was stunned for a moment before she reacted. She immediately replied to Yun Jian with a smile, you're so young. How could you be their boss? With that, Dai Qingqing pulled Yun Jian's arm and walked happily to the largest skating rink in Hang City. The largest skating rink in Hang City was very large. It was equivalent to a large sports field. Dai Qingqing and Yun Jian each bought a pair of ice skates from a vendor at the entrance of the skating rink. The pair that Dai Qingqing bought was pink with a little rabbit pattern on it. On the other hand, Yun Jian bought a pair of sky blue shoes that looked like crystal shoes. Under the sunlight or lights, they seemed to glow. Hurry up and try it on. See if it fits. After buying the tickets and entering the skating rink, Dai Qingqing picked up the skates eagerly and pulled Yun Jian to a bench to put them on. Yun Jian smiled as well and bent down to change her shoes on the bench. Dai Qingqing was thrilled because she had found a friend. Although Dai Qingqing looked happy all day long, she was actually very lonely. Due to her status as the illegitimate daughter of the Kai family, she had never received any respect or friendship at home or in school. Chapter 715. After hearing this familiar voice, Dai Qingqing's smile instantly froze. At this time, Dai Qingqing was still bending over to put on her shoes, but when this voice sounded, her hands that were putting on her shoes instantly froze, and even the smile on her face froze a little. Hee hee, so our illegitimate daughter also comes to the skating rink to skate. TSK, look, you even brought a friend today. This sarcastic male voice became more and more unpleasant, and Dai Qingqing's face became more and more gloomy. She didn't even dare to look up. It wasn't Dai Qingqing's first time skating. On the contrary, Dai Qingqing's skating skills were excellent. Dai Qingqing's school was an aristocratic school, and it was one of the best in the entire Han city. The aristocratic school had an amateur skating club, which was jointly opened by some skating enthusiasts. Dai Qingqing didn't have any friends at school, but she had a good relationship with the director of the amateur skating club. However, the director was a boy, and Dai Qingqing wasn't in the same class. The reason why the director was friendly to her was only because Dai Qingqing was excellent at skating. The male voice that was mocking Dai Qingqing just now lost interest when he saw that Dai Qingqing ignored him. After all, this person just wanted to show off in front of his friends, but seeing that Dai Qingqing ignored him, he could only give up. But suddenly seeing that there was a girl sitting next to Dai Qingqing, his playful heart rose again. Since Dai Qingqing ignored him, then he would play with her friend. At this moment, Yun Jian was sitting on the bench of the skating rink, bending over to change her shoes. She naturally heard the male voice that insulted Dai Qingqing, but Dai Qingqing chose to ignore it, so Yun Jian naturally ignored it. Are you Dai Qingqing's friend? Raise your head and let me see. The male voice shifted his target to Yun Jian, and said to Yun Jian in a commanding tone. Dai Qingqing was always alone at school, and she didn't have any friends. Because of her identity as an illegitimate daughter, and because Kai Wenwei liked to use her identity to threaten Dai Qingqing's friends, Dai Qingqing didn't have any friends in the end. Only the director of the skating rink club was not afraid of Kai Wenwei's oppression and still walked with Dai Qingqing. However, the head of the skating club and Dai Qingqing were not in the same class. Moreover, he was a man and Dai Qingqing was a woman. If they often played together, they would be criticized by others. Therefore, Dai Qingqing was always alone in school. When the boy saw that there was a girl beside Dai Qingqing, he naturally ran over to mock and ridicule her without thinking. This was because this boy was also a member of the skating club, but his strength was second only to Dai Qingqing. Or to put it another way, no matter how hard the boy tried, he couldn't compete with Dai Qingqing. Therefore, he was quite jealous, so in the past, he often brought people to cause trouble for Dai Qingqing. Yun Jian didn't listen to a single word the boy said. She still bent down and slowly took off the pair of white flat shoes on her feet, then put on the pair of ice skates. Not only did Yun Jian's movements not speed up, she even slowed down. You! Dai Qingqing and Yun Jian didn't pay attention to him from beginning to end. The boy was so angry that his whole body trembled. Just when he was about to curse, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. He heard Yun Jian's pleasant voice, but the words weren't directed at the boy. She turned her head to Dai Qingqing and said, "Let's go." With that, Yun Jian stood up with the ice skates on. If a beginner put on ice skates, they were bound to fall down. After Yun Jian put on the ice skates and stood up, the ice skates on Yun Jian's legs were like flat shoes, and it didn't affect her at all. The boy was shocked, not because Yun Jian could wear ice skates and didn't fall down, but because... Chapter 7:16. Yun Jian wasn't short to begin with, but she wasn't particularly tall either. She was about 1.6 meters tall. Yun Jian's height coupled with her delicate and flawless face made her look petite and cute. Her figure and face didn't make her too tall, but neither did she make her look too short. Yun Jian was the moderate type. Because of that, Yun Jian's body proportions and face were a perfect match. She could make people's eyes light up when they first saw her. It was especially so since she had never put on any makeup. Her supple cheeks were delicate and flawless. Yun Jian was changing her shoes with her head down, so the boy only saw Yunjian's beautiful figure. When Yunjian stood up, her 4 to 5 centimeters long ice skates enhanced her petite figure even more. The boy was stunned for a moment. Yunjian glanced sideways at the boy who insulted Dai Qingqing. Her cold eyes made one's hair stand on end just by looking at them. Yunjian had a face that made people unable to look down on her. The boy couldn't help but be attracted to Yunjian. "Hey, Yi Kai, you." The other boys standing beside the boy saw that he was stunned, so they called out his name. The few of them looked at Yunjian carelessly. When they saw Yunjian's face, the few careless boys were instantly stunned. Yunjian was even prettier than before. Her tender skin was like a newborn baby's. No one could ignore her beauty. Cough, cough, cough. The boy named Yi Kai who spoke first put his fist by his mouth, trying to cover up the awkwardness with coughs. However, his eyes were fixed on Yunjian the whole time. "Yunjian, let's go." "Ignore them." Dai Qingqing was quite pretty, but she wasn't as delicate as Yunjian. Therefore, the boys didn't feel like they were bullying a girl even though they often bullied Dai Qingqing. Dai Qingqing, on the other hand, had obviously noticed that the boys' gazes were all on her. After all, these boys had a lot of power in the school. Dai Qingqing didn't want Yunjian to get into trouble because of her, so she put on her ice skates and pulled Yunjian towards the skating rink. Hey, why are you in such a hurry to leave?" Dai Qingqing, we're classmates and members of the same club. Why don't we play together? Yi Kai walked over to block Dai Qingqing and Yunjian. He stared straight at Yunjian, and even his attitude towards Dai Qingqing improved. Yi Kai and Dai Qingqing were classmates. The most popular club in their school was with the skating club. This was because ice skating could not only exercise the body, but was also an exciting and hot-blooded sport. Therefore, Yi Kai's group of boys was the same as Dai Qingqing. They were all classmates of the skating club. However, Dai Qingqing was very good at skating. Moreover, Dai Qingqing's appearance didn't suit the boys' tastes. Therefore, Yi Kai's group often found trouble with Dai Qingqing. However, they were stunned when they saw Yunjian. Now, their attitude towards Dai Qingqing improved only because of Yunjian's appearance. Yi Kai's heart itched. He had never seen such a beautiful girl. He wanted to get to know Yunjian even more. "You're all here. What a coincidence." Right at this moment, another female voice came from the side. A tall and slender young lady with good looks was walking towards them. There were 2 girls following behind the young girl. They looked like her little followers. Chapter 717. Wow, it's Gao Meihan. She's the campus belle of our school. Why is she here? After the girl appeared, 2 of Yi Kai's buddies immediately cried out in surprise. What do you know? She must be here for our campus hunky. A guy standing next to Yi Kai proudly put his arm around Yi Kai's shoulder and laughed at the 2 people who were discussing. After saying that, the guy couldn't help but look to the side and glance at Yunjian. The girl just now was the campus belle of their school. Her name was Gao Meihan. Gao Meihan was recognized as the #1 beauty in the school. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also kind and got along well with others. Therefore, a beauty like Gao Meihan was the ideal partner in many boys' hearts. Yunjian, let's go. However, after Dai Qingqing saw Gao Meihan, she walked over and wanted to pull Yunjian to the side even more. Others didn't know, but Dai Qingqing had experienced it firsthand. Gao Meihan, who was rumored to be beautiful and kind, only knew how to pretend in front of boys. Dai Qingqing accidentally bumped into Gao Meihan on her way to school. At that time, Gao Meihan said that she was fine. Dai Qingqing thought that Gao Meihan was a nice person. However, in less than 2 days, there was news that she didn't apologize for bumping into Gao Meihan. Immediately, some boys came to Dai Qingqing to cause trouble, using the excuse of standing up for their goddess. Gao Meihan pretended to be innocent and told the boys not to cause trouble for Dai Qingqing. She said that it was her own accident. This way, the boys could stand up for Gao Meihan even more. Dai Qingqing was messed up badly back then. Therefore, when Dai Qingqing saw Gao Meihan, she felt a wave of hatred in her heart. Yun Jian had been watching from the side. She didn't forget that she came to Hang City to attend the gang gathering at night. However, she didn't expect to be friends with Dai Qingqing. As for coming to the ice skating rink, it was purely out of interest. As a special agent in her previous life, Yun Jian basically knew everything that could be said. This was because special agents had to mix in all kinds of situations to kill people. Yun Jian might not be particularly good at ice skating, but compared to ordinary people, she was a piece of cake. Yes. Yun Jian didn't want to stay here any longer. When she heard that Dai Qingqing was going to leave, she turned around and left with Yi Kai and the others on her back. Seeing that Dai Qingqing and Yun Jian had left on their own accord, Gao Meihan's somewhat unhappy expression instantly improved a little. Everyone knew that Gao Meihan liked Yi Kai. Yi Kai was the school hunk in their school. He was indeed good-looking. He was tall and lean, which was exactly what girls liked. Therefore, Gao Meihan purposely came here to look for Yi Kai. Gao Meihan knew that Yi Kai would definitely be here. Yi Kai was a member of the school's skating club. Gao Meihan already knew that he loved skating the most. However, she didn't expect to see Yi Kai staring blankly at a girl as soon as she entered the venue. No girl had ever caught Yi Kai's eye, including herself. Therefore, Gao Meihan watched Yun Jian walk over with a hateful gaze. Seeing that Dai Qingqing and Yun Jian were about to leave, Gao Meihan was also relieved. At this moment, Yi Kai's voice sounded again, "Wait. Don't go." Yi Kai once again looked at Yun Jian with infatuation. It was undeniable that he fell in love with Yun Jian at first sight. Yi Kai took a deep breath. He looked at Dai Qingqing and realized that Yun Jian was with Dai Qingqing. Therefore, he said to Dai Qingqing, "Dai Qingqing, if I did anything wrong to you before, I apologize to you. I'm now sincerely inviting the two of you to come with us. Please don't reject." Yi Kai had high standards. Even a school belle like Gao Meihan couldn't catch his eye. However, he fell in love with Yun Jian the moment he saw her. Chapter 718. Dai Qingqing's eyelids twitched. What was this? Yi Kai actually apologized to her? One had to know that Yi Kai was the one who always caused trouble for her in school. Dai Qingqing would rather believe that the sky was falling than believe that Yi Kai would apologize to her. But now? Yi Kai really apologized to her? Dai Qingqing was overjoyed, but she still put on airs and ignored Yi Kai and the others. She said to Yun Jian, let's not lower ourselves to their level. I'll teach you how to skate. And I'll definitely teach you better than them. Yun Jian softly agreed. In fact, she didn't want to mess with Yi Kai and the others at all. Qingqing, Senior Yi invited you guys to skate. Don't reject him. It's rare for us to get together. Let's play together. Gao Meihan wanted nothing more than to tear Yun Jian into pieces, but she had no choice but to put on her usual kind face. Gao Meihan seemed to want to appear kinder in front of the boys. She was still like an innocent girl. She tried to run over and hold Yun Jian's hand while saying, "Let's play together. I don't even know your name yet. You're so pretty. Let's be friends." But in reality, Gao Meihan hated Yun Jian to the core. Gao Meihan liked Yi Kai, but Yi Kai didn't like her. Gao Meihan couldn't do anything about it. But today, she suddenly saw Yi Kai staring blankly at an unfamiliar girl. If Gao Meihan wasn't angry and wanted to be friends with Yun Jian, then she must be stupid. But in front of the boys, Gao Meihan always acted like this. The school belle is different. Look at how magnanimous Gao Meihan is. Yeah. She's beautiful and kind-hearted. A few of Yi Kai's buddies immediately began to comment on her. At this moment, Gao Meihan was already walking towards Yun Jian. At the same time, she reached out and wanted to hold her hand like how Dai Qingqing held Yun Jian's hand. Hearing the praises from the people around her, Gao Meihan's heart rose slightly. She even couldn't help but curse in her heart. If the boys thought that she was so kind, then Ye Kai must be touched. After all, she was pretty and had a good figure. Which man in the world could resist her temptation? But just as Gao Meihan was about to hold Yunjian's hand, Yunjian's skates moved slightly to the side. She easily dodged Gao Meihan's hand. Sorry, I don't like strangers touching me with their dirty hands. With the side of her face facing Gao Meihan, Yunjian's nonchalant tone made the temperature in the room drop by a few degrees. The word stranger and dirty hands made Gao Meihan's heavily made-up face twitch violently. Her face instantly froze. A vicious and disgusted light flashed in Gao Meihan's eyes, but she still pretended to be pure and innocent. She looked as if she had really suffered a great grievance. Yunjian tugged the corner of her lips slightly. Seeing their school belle being bullied, Ye Kai's buddies righteously stood up for Gao Meihan. Hey, how can you be like this? Gao Meihan really wants to be friends with you. How can you be like this? One of Ye Kai's buddies rushed to speak to Yunjian. Although Gao Meihan pretended to be aggrieved and crying in front of the boys, she was always listening to the movements around her. Pretending to be pitiful was her specialty. Just when Gao Meihan thought that Yunjian would embarrassingly apologize to her in front of everyone like a normal girl, she heard Yunjian's cold voice again. Chapter 719. The skating rink was huge, and there were many people skating here. Yunjian didn't say it very loudly, but it made everyone's heart tremble. Who would have thought that such a beautiful girl could say something so terrifying? What did she mean by, not only can I do that, but I can also kill you? Moreover, Yunjian's last question, do you believe me, was uttered in a flat tone. It wasn't a question, but a confirmation. Gao Meihan shuddered violently, and Ye Kai and the others were stunned for a while. Even Dai Qingqing looked at Yunjian in shock, and couldn't help but gasp at the same time. After all, if it was a normal girl, no one would say something like that so casually. Kill? That was something no one dared to think about. Yunjian, on the other hand, had uttered the words so easily. Pretty girl, you shouldn't joke like that, right? As if trying to ease the atmosphere, Ye Kai's buddy stood up again. He smiled awkwardly and looked at Yunjian. Without a doubt, everyone thought that Yunjian was just joking. Let's go. Yunjian glanced at them, and said to Dai Qingqing. Oh. Dai Qingqing reacted after a while, and then she followed Yunjian to the side, bypassing Ye Kai and the others, and walked to another corner. Dai Qingqing laughed until they were far away from Ye Kai and the others. Hee, Yunjian, did you see Gao Meihan's face just now? She was twitching. You probably don't know who Gao Meihan is, right? She's the girl who pretended to be pitiful in front of the boys, back then she. Dai Qingqing talked to Yunjian for a while about what Gao Meihan did to her before she stopped. At this moment, Dai Qingqing and Yunjian were already standing at the ice skating rink in the north. Ye Kai, Gao Meihan, and the others were standing on the south side of the skating rink, which was the furthest away from Yunjian and Dai Qingqing. It was fortunate that the skating rink was huge, so Ye Kai's men could not hear what Yunjian and Dai Qingqing said since one was in the north while the other was in the south. Yunjian put on her ice skates and moved a little on the ice skating rink. She sat on the rest seat and watched Dai Qingqing skate. Dai Qingqing's skating posture is very gentle and beautiful. Yunjian squints and appreciates it again. Dai Qingqing was a member of the school's skating club. She was interested in skating and was good at it. Therefore, Yunjian accompanied Dai Qingqing and stayed here for the whole afternoon. When they left the skating club, it was already 4:30 p.m. Let's go, Yunjian. I'll take you to a feast. Dai Qingqing said generously. She had already regarded Yunjian as her true friend. Okay. Yunjian nodded. The two went back along the road. They first called Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei at Xian Garden Hotel, then went to the place Dai Qingqing pointed to for dinner. I should go back, Yunjian. Let's meet at the gathering tonight. Dai Qingqing said happily to Yunjian when she found out that Yunjian was going to the gathering tonight. Dai Qingqing stayed at Xian Garden Hotel because she didn't want to go back to the Kai family. But tonight was special. As the most favored granddaughter, Dai Qingqing's grandfather would take her to the gathering tonight. This gang gathering was held by the Leopard Gang. However, the Leopard Gang had invited people from all walks of life to participate in such a gathering. They wanted to get closer to each other and strive for better results. However, some large companies or enterprises would bring their children to such gatherings purely to introduce their juniors to the public. If there was someone of the right age, they could even get married. Chapter 720. Therefore, not only were the attendees of tonight's gathering internationally renowned or reputable companies in Jia province or even the world, these people would even bring their children along. However, under normal circumstances, the people who could bring their children to make friends with a wider social circle were usually the big companies in Jia province. As for the big shots that the Leopard Gang invited from the international community, there was no need to even think about it. They definitely wouldn't bring them. Even if someone wanted their children to get to know each other and become in-laws, it would depend on the situation. After all, it was a gathering organized by a gang in Jia province. If the big shots from the international scene brought their children to meet someone they fancied, they would either be marrying someone of lower status. It was not worth it. Of course, no one would voice such thoughts out loud. It was just that such a social phenomenon truly existed. After bidding farewell to Dai Qingqing, Yunjian returned to Xian Garden Hotel. Since she had nothing to do in the hotel, she brought Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, who had been cooped up in their rooms for the entire afternoon, to the hotel lounge to play mahjong. Before Zhang Jifan joined Yunjian, he was still a small-time thug in Xinjiang town. Back then, Zhang Jifan was either gambling or lending money at a high interest rate. It had been a long time since he played mahjong since he started following Yunjian. I didn't expect you to be so good, Sister Jian. Zhang Jifan exclaimed in exasperation after losing to Yunjian again. 4 people were required to play mahjong together. Since there was a mahjong table in Xian Garden Hotel's lounge, mahjong enthusiasts would naturally seek it out. Other than Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, the other person at Yunjian's table was a mahjong enthusiast. After losing 6 to 7 rounds to Yunjian, the mahjong enthusiast opposite her stood up and left like he was running away. He was a bald old man who was currently rubbing his head and shouting, "I've lost it all, I've lost it all. I'm old, I can't do it anymore. I can't even win a little girl. I'm not coming anymore, I'm not coming anymore." Shaking his head and sighing, the little old man quickly left the place. "Sister Jian, can we stop?" Zhang Jifan, who had just lost a handful of 100 yuan, begged desperately, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Yunjian glanced at Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, who didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She then looked at the clock in the lounge and said, "Again." Zhang Jifan wanted to cry but had no tears. After Yunjian won a lot of money, Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei had their wallets emptied by Yunjian. The clock pointed to 7:30 in the evening. "I made quite a bit of money. I'll treat you two to supper after the party." Yunjian patted her bulging trouser pockets and said generously to Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei. At the same time, she grinned slightly, revealing her neat row of white front teeth. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei were speechless. At 7:40 p.m., a large bus stopped at the entrance of Xian Garden Hotel. The bus was there to pick up people who did not drive there. Duan Lei drove a tour bus, so he did not need to take the bus that Leopard's gang had sent. When Duan Lei drove steadily to the building where the party was being held, it was exactly 8 p.m. Leopard's gang's party was not held at Xian Garden Hotel. Duan Lei opened the door for Yunjian personally and Yunjian hopped out of the car. Yunjian then walked in front while Duan Lei and Zhang Jifan guarded her as they walked to the high-end building where the party was being held. The building was used for the party. Chapter 721. At this moment, in front of this building, where there was no light, it was still pitch black. The side of the building was filled with fountains, and the various neon lights shone on the fountains, instantly adding a strange color to the fountains. Passing through a small forest on this side of the stone path, one could see this tall building standing in front of them from afar. The closer they got to the building's entrance, the clearer Yun Jian and her friends could be seen in the dark. "Sister Jian, it's here. Let's go in." Duan Lei held a piece of paper in his hand that had the address of the gathering written on it. He glanced at the address with the help of the street lamp and looked up at the building's door number as he told Yun Jian. Yun Jian nodded and led Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei forward. Just as they reached the stairs of the building, Yun Jian heard someone calling her name from behind from afar. Hearing the voice, Yun Jian was certain that the person who spoke was not Dai Qingqing. It was a man's voice. Standing on the stairs, Yun Jian tilted her head slightly to look at him. When she saw who was walking over, she frowned slightly. The person who called her was none other than Ye Kai, whom she had met at the skating rink. There was a middle-aged man and woman standing beside Ye Kai's tall frame. Looking at their features that resembled Ye Kai's, Yun Jian could guess that they were Ye Kai's parents. "Yun Jian. It's really you." Ye Kai exclaimed in delight when he saw Yun Jian. When Ye Kai saw Yun Jian's frown, he suddenly realized something and chuckled. His rather handsome face displeased Yun Jian. "Heh heh. It's because that's what Dai Qingqing called you. I heard it, so I knew you're Yun Jian," Ye Kai explained before looking at Yun Jian like a gentleman and told her, "You're Yun Jian. I didn't expect you to come here. Do you want to go in together?" Yun Jian narrowed her eyes at Ye Kai's friendly tone. "Kai, who is this girl?" A middle-aged woman who was dressed to the nines standing behind Ye Kai glanced at Yun Jian in disdain and asked Ye Kai. "She's a girl I met at the skating rink," Ye Kai explained to his mother with a smile. Ye Kai's mother's surname was Yu, and her name was Xiaodan. Yu Xiaodan was an experienced person. She could tell at a glance that her son was interested in Yun Jian. However, after looking at Yun Jian, Yu Xiaodan immediately frowned. Everyone who came to the party tonight was dressed up. Not only Yu Xiaodan, but even Ye Kai had changed into a suit, which made him look even cooler. On the other hand, Yun Jian was dressed in simple and ordinary clothes. Although Yun Jian had a good foundation, no matter what she wore, she would not lose her beauty. But to an upper-class family like Yu Xiaodan, what use was beauty? Money and power were the most important things. Therefore, there was no need to think about it. Yu Xiaodan had already looked down on Yun Jian. "Kai, our family is considered a respectable one. It's better if you don't interact with shady people." Yu Xiaodan looked at Yun Jian, then looked at Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei standing behind her and said to Ye Kai with disdain. "Mom." Ye Kai wanted to say something, but a girl that Yun Jian was familiar with spoke up. Chapter 722. The moment Gao Meihan saw Yun Jian, she wanted to kill her. Why? Why was this woman here? Gao Meihan also came with her parents today. Her family background was similar to Ye Kai's. They were both the young master and the young mistress of a prestigious family. Most importantly, the parents of the two families were business partners. They were the school belle and the school hunk. They were a perfect match. Gao Meihan pestered her parents to come today because Ye Kai would definitely be there. Gao Meihan and Ye Kai's families were at the bottom of the food chain in today's gathering. They weren't eye-catching at all. As for Ye Kai's brothers, they didn't even have the right to attend tonight's gathering. Gao Meihan wanted to take advantage of today to call Ye Kai out in the middle of the gathering. She wanted to avoid both parents and confess to Ye Kai. When she saw Ye Kai from afar, Gao Meihan was extremely excited. But who did she see? She saw Yun Jian. It was actually the woman that Ye Kai was infatuated with. Why was she here? However, in order to maintain her image, especially in front of Ye Kai's family, Gao Meihan could only dig her fingernails into her flesh. She turned to look at Yun Jian and showed a friendly face. Ah, you're here too? What a coincidence. We must be fated to meet. Gao Meihan stuck out her tongue as she spoke, acting like a young girl. Meihan, you're here. Auntie has been waiting for you at home for a few days. You must come and stay over next weekend. Yu Xiaodan could tell that her son, Yi Kai, was interested in Yun Jian. She purposely walked up to Yun Jian and gently held Gao Meihan's hand. Yu Xiaodan thought that since her son liked Yun Jian would definitely be interested in her son. After all, which girl wouldn't want to marry into a prestigious family like theirs? The type of daughter-in-law that Yu Xiaodan admired the most was someone like Gao Meihan. Therefore, Yu Xiaodan did this in front of Yun Jian so that the latter would know her place and not come here to seduce her son. Sister Jian, it's 8:05 p.m. We should go up, Zhang Jifan told Yun Jian after checking his watch. Yun Jian saw Yu Xiaodan and Gao Meihan's reaction, but she merely snorted inwardly and turned to go up the stairs. Hey, Yun Jian, wait for me. Yi Kai ran after her when he saw Yun Jian going in. Yu Xiaodan was fuming as she dragged Gao Meihan and led the others up as well. Yu Xiaodan couldn't help but curse in her heart. It must be that little B***TCH who stole her son's soul. She's still pretending to be virtuous. Playing hard to get? Humph, she was not going to let the B***TCH get away with it. Yun Jian ignored Yi Kai who chased after her as she led Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei to the entrance of the gathering. There was someone sitting at the entrance to register. One could only enter the venue after their identity was reported. Pulling Gao Meihan along, Yu Xiaodan ran up with a group of people behind her. She practically sprinted to Yun Jian and hollered at the person who was registering at the entrance, Yi Group. Then, Yu Xiaodan pointed at Gao Meihan and told the person, "This is Gao Group's young lady. You can go in now," the person at the entrance said after registering. Yu Xiaodan turned to look at Yun Jian with her head held high, her gaze seemingly saying, "What identity are you using to enter this place?" Yun Jian ignored Yu Xiaodan and went to the registration counter. With a press of her red lips, she uttered, "Falcon Hall." Chapter 723. Yu Xiaodan had been looking at Yun Jian with her head held high, but she froze the moment Yun Jian revealed her identity. Falcon Hall? Even the registrar sitting at the entrance was about to write down the next entrance identity when she heard Yun Jian's name. She could not help but freeze on the spot with her pen in her hand. Yi Kai's hand that was trying to get closer to Yun Jian froze in midair. Gao Meihan, Yi Kai, and Gao Meihan's parents were all stunned. No one would pay attention to Yun Jian because Yun Jian's attire alone was enough to make her seem like a nobody. However, Falcon Hall was a gang that had risen recently. Back then, Leopard Pack was the top gang in Jia province while Flying Passage was second. In other words, Flying Passage's influence was second only to Leopard Pack. It could be said that Flying Passage was the only gang that could possibly replace Leopard Pack as the top gang in Jia province. Even Leopard Pack, the top gang in Jia province, could not annihilate Flying Passage. However, news had spread a few months ago that Flying Passage had been annihilated by Falcon Hall. All of Flying Passage's territory had now become Falcon Hall's. The news was already shocking enough, but compared to that, the scariest part about Falcon Hall was, back when Flying Passage was annihilated, it was not Falcon Hall who led their brothers to fight for it. Instead, it was Falcon Hall's boss, Rakshasa, who went to Flying Passage alone and killed their boss right in front of the higher-ups and everyone else. She did not need anyone to annihilate the second-best gang in Jia province on her own. Just how powerful was that? However, no one present would associate Yun Jian with the legendary Falcon Hall's current boss, Rakshasa. After all, the legendary Rakshasa was too powerful, while the Yun Jian before them looked thin and weak. Although Yun Jian was now much more voluptuous than when she had just been reborn, she still looked skinny with her clothes wrapped around her body. Falcon Hall? Yun Jian, you're from Falcon Hall? Yi Kai's first reaction was shock. After all, most of the people present knew what Falcon Hall represented. Falcon Hall was able to wipe out Flying Passage in the shortest time possible when even Leopard Pack could not. This meant that Falcon Hall would very likely replace Leopard Pack as the #1 gang in Jia province in the future. Although Ye Kai and Gao Meihan's families were prominent in Hang City, in a gathering like this, their companies were only at the bottom of the food chain. Not to mention Falcon Hall and Leopard Pack. They were not even 1/10 of Falcon Hall and Leopard Pack. Therefore, Yu Xiaodan's face turned pale the moment she heard that Yun Jian was from Falcon Hall. She had just verbally insulted Yun Jian because she saw Yun Jian's shabby clothes. At first, Yu Xiaodan even thought that Yun Jian was the kind of woman who would shamelessly come to her son and beg him to bring her into the venue. That was why Yu Xiaodan had boasted about her and Gao Meihan's family background in front of Yun Jian. However, who would have thought that Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's member? How was that possible? She was still so young. How could she represent Falcon Hall in this gathering? Yun Jian ignored Ye Kai. At the same time, Zhang Jifan had walked to the registration counter. He spoke to the people registering, new crews. Chapter 724. When Yun Jian mentioned Falcon Hall earlier, it meant that she was a member of Falcon Hall. Ye Kai and Gao Meihan's families had mixed feelings. After all, everyone knew of Falcon Hall's name. However, who would have thought that Zhang Jifan, who had been following behind Yun Jian, would mention the name new crews so bluntly? If Falcon Hall was a rising force that should not be provoked, then New Cruz was the representative of the new generation of large corporations. Now that New Cruz was well known throughout the country, New Cruz was undoubtedly a trendsetter in Country Z. New Cruz had also started planning to expand nationwide in the form of branches. The plan was still in progress, but Yun Jian had already arranged for Zhang Jifan to carry out the plan. At the same time, New Cruz had already begun to join the company nationwide and received a great response. It could be said that New Cruz was the rising star of the future. As for Ye Kai's family's Yi Group and Gao Meihan's Gao Group, there was no need to even think about it. They were incomparable to New Cruz. When Yun Jian mentioned Falcon Hall, the person at the registration counter was dumbfounded. In the end, Zhang Jifan, who looked like Yun Jian's follower, came forward and said New Cruz. The person at the registration counter was completely dumbfounded. The black pen in her hand fell to the ground with a clatter. The person at the registration counter quickly bent down to pick up the pen. Then, she wrote New Cruz on the registration book in a panic. She then said to Yun Jian in a panic, "Apologies, I'm sorry. My apologies for my rudeness earlier. You may enter now." The lady at the registration counter was used to meeting all sorts of big shots. Naturally, she would not be intimidated by such a small matter. If Yun Jian did not look so young and her identity, including that of the middle-aged man behind her, were not so shocking, the lady at the registration counter would not be stunned at all. Ye Kai turned sideways to say something to Yun Jian, who was 2 meters away from him just as the lady at the registration counter finished her words. "Sister Jian, let's go in," Zhang Jifan spoke first to Yun Jian. "Yes." Yun Jian nodded. Then, Yun Jian led Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei through the entrance. The corners of Ye Kai's mouth twitched. He looked at Yun Jian's petite but alluring back, and his heart began to stir. Seeing this, Gao Meihan once again dug her fingernails into her flesh, but her face was trembling as she pulled out a very unnatural smile. "Calm down." Yu Xiaodan walked over and knocked on Ye Kai's head, then muttered to herself, "Stop pretending. A perfectly fine girl running off to mingle in the underworld, she's definitely not a good person. You better stay away from her. Don't be bewitched." Saying that, Yu Xiaodan grabbed Gao Meihan's hand and patted it gently. Then, she smiled at Gao Meihan and praised her in front of her family. "Our Meihan is the best. Not only is she beautiful, but she's also kind-hearted and generous." Yu Xiaodan even comforted herself as she spoke. In Yu Xiaodan's opinion, so what if Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's member? So what if Zhang Jifan was Yun Jian's man and was related to New Cruz? She was not Falcon Hall's boss, the woman called Slaying Luo. She was not the director of new crews. What was there to be smug about? Some people are just too self-righteous and think too highly of themselves. Yu Xiaodan didn't forget to add such a sentence. Chapter 725. Yu Xiaodan said that because she was indignant that Yun Jian had been more arrogant than her just now. Therefore, if Yu Xiaodan did not mock Yun Jian, she would feel even worse holding it in. This was only because Yu Xiaodan did not know Yun Jian's identity. If Yu Xiaodan knew Yun Jian's true identity, she would not dare to say such things even if she had the guts to do so. All right, let's go in. After listening to Yu Xiaodan's words, even Yu Xiaodan's own husband couldn't listen to it anymore. He hurriedly urged twice. Fine. Yu Xiaodan replied impatiently. Then, she turned to look at Gao Meihan with a benevolent face. The more Yu Xiaodan looked at Gao Meihan, the more she liked her. As they spoke, they followed Yun Jian through the entrance. When Yun Jian led Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei into the venue, they were greeted by various dining tables that were more than 10 meters long. The lights in front of them lit up the place like it was daytime, while all sorts of desserts were laid out on the tables. There were many cutlery on the tables covered with white tablecloths, but it was obvious that the desserts and cutlery were expensive just by looking at them. There were wine bottles piled up on some of the tables. From a distance, it was obvious that the wine was expensive and they were all premium items from the olden days. It was obvious that one could enjoy any of the delicacies here for free once they entered the venue. This was a gathering of the upper class. Yun Jian went to a rectangular table and took a small Swiss roll from it, popping it into her mouth to chew and swallow. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei were hungry as well, standing in an inconspicuous corner with Yun Jian with the desserts in their hands. Sister Jian, this dessert is delicious. We should change the food in our sect. I'm sick of the communal meals. Duan Lei, who was usually calm, could not help teasing. I've eaten the communal meals in your sect once too. TSK. That taste isn't even 1/100th of the dessert in my hand. Zhang Jifan teased with a chuckle. I'll send the chef here back to Longmen City another day then, Yun Jian teased with a smile. The venue was already filled with people and there were still people streaming in from outside. In comparison, Yun Jian, Zhang Jifan, and Duan Lei did not have much of a presence. Moreover, most of the people there were already chatting with their acquaintances. Yun Jian did not have many acquaintances in Jia province. Be it New Cruz or Falcon Hall, she did not rely on the connections around her to develop them. All in all, there were not many people who knew her. Yun Jian. You're here. It was at this moment that a joyful voice came from the side. Yun Jian looked over. She did not even have to look. The person who could call her name with such a cheerful voice was undoubtedly Dai Qingqing. As expected, Dai Qingqing was holding a man in his 50s or 60s. An old man with graying hair on both sides of his temples was walking over. It was obvious that the old man had graying hair, but he was in high spirits. There was an air of arrogance between his brows that radiated around him, forcing those present to look at him directly in the eye. It was obvious that the old man was Dai Qingqing's grandfather, Kai Wenhao. Dai Qingqing followed her mother's surname and returned to the Kai family later, so she had a different surname from Kai Wenhao. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.